is on his way, from what I understand, so he will be here in a little bit. But we do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Is a report on council actions. You're it? It's weird feeling off center.
July 5th, I think it was. Yes, July 5th was their last meeting. They had four public hearings. Two of those were variances. One was a variances required by code for a rebuild letter if a property is destroyed more than 50% of the rebuild cost. That allows them to just rebuild the entire thing. And that was for Fortress Storage. That was on Happy Valley Road, just north, right by the airport. So they granted that one. Another one was the variance for a 6-foot fence and accessory structure in the front yard. It was just to the side of the home and stuck out maybe 5 feet or so on Colina Vista Way or Colina Vista Drive, and that was also approved. An annexation and zoning to IL off of Ustick Road for River Range, Idaho, was also approved. And that was for 4 light industrial lots for warehousing and production distribution. And then the last one was annexation and zoning to RD. And that was for 20 townhouse units in 10 buildings, 8 single-family detached homes, and 3 common lots. And that was at 525 East Greenhurst Road. And the name of that one, I'm trying to remember. Parker Estates. That's right. It was assigned to Parker. So
Makes sense.
that actually got continued. They had some information that they wanted to gather before they made their decision. So yet to know the result of that one.
You want to just hang up for a second, because we got staff communication next. If there is any staff communication,
No staff
we can
communication.
consider that staff
Oh,
communication.
actually, I can report that the budget was in a workshop. The city council looked at our budget and approved it just yesterday, and so I was glad to hear that. The final approval will happen at a public hearing, likely in August. But we have some funding in there this year. We really haven't had like planning dollars in the past. We have our first time that we actually set aside planning dollars for some projects. And we talked about that in the past, some priority projects like the mid-level project like up by Boise River and planning out the land uses there. We also have the Midland Corridor being analyzed right now. We are doing the State Highway 16 corridor study. And then, so those dollars that we put in the budget are meant for that kind of a study, kind of a master plan, because sometimes we've been struggling to have, the comp plan allows multifamily in certain areas or townhouses in certain areas. And then we get a lot of pressure from the community saying, this isn't the appropriate place for it, even though the comp plan says it is. And so this is a little more detailed study of those areas, and I shouldn't call them master plans, but they're area plans or neighborhood plans, so that we can identify how do we transition from the existing single family into other land uses, and how do we encourage mixed use so that there's commercial nearby for services and restaurants and food, that kind of thing, jobs. So I'm kind of excited about that. I think we'll definitely involve you in those processes in the future. And it's just a good precedent for us to set, to put some funding aside for that kind of development to plan ahead.
Typically, would you use funding from where for that? Would it come out of general budget or out of
Yeah,
out
so
of the
in the
mayor's
past,
office?
that has come out for like the comp plan in the past, that had come out of the general fund. But these dollars are set aside from fees and permits that we collect from those permits. So the fees that we collect from the permits. So it's that growth that's helping to pay for the plans for the future growth.
Rodney, did you get the raise I requested for you?
Was it 3 cents?
A raise, you
yeah,
know, more
well-
money?
Yeah, I didn't get it yet. No.
The way I voted was you choose how much.
Thank you, Rodney. All right, next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion or other action.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. All right, we're going to start public hearings. Before we start public hearings, just a quick note, I guess, administrative note. That when you do come up, or if you do choose to come up and testify in the public hearing, we need you to state your name and your address so that we have it on the record. And then you got 3 minutes to speak your mind on that particular issue, not just anything you want, but just on that particular issue. So we'll go ahead and get started with action item number 1, which is, Rodney? But you could, yeah, sorry. I just looked at Rodney's name, it was on here, but yeah, go ahead and do your presentation.
Great, thanks Vice Chair Kirkman and Commissioners Jeff Bauer, 601 West Bannock in Boise, here tonight on behalf of the applicant Panatani. Joining us remotely on this project is our project architect, Tim Nicholson from Kimley Horn. If there are any technical questions about the site plan, Tim can provide some more background. Real quick on Panatani, I think many of you were here a few years back when we brought the Boy 2 Amazon distribution facility through. That was a Panatani project. This is their second project in the city of Nampa. They're a large industrial developer throughout the nation, bringing about 35 million square feet of Class A industrial space to the market each year. So again, second project in Nampa. And I wanted to bring this specific project up in Des Moines Creek, Washington, because it's going to be a very similar style of the building you're going to see tonight. We have one application before you tonight. It's going to be a rezone. We're asking for a rezone of 36 acres from community business to light industrial. We are proposing a development agreement that will lock us into a site plan and facade standards, as we've been going through the last couple times on industrial. This will be a turnkey spec industrial project, again, Class A status. We're on the northwest corner of Middleton Road and Caldwell Boulevard.
Love this song, it's awesome.
I wish you would have played that as I was coming up.
Yeah, there you go. That would have been perfect.
And the comp plan on the right there, this site is designated as commercial, but we have industrial designation to the north and west. So because of that industrial designation to the north and west, we do have adjacent industrial designation, which makes the light industrial we're asking for tonight appropriate and fit within the comp plan. This property was annexed by the city in 2000. At the time, it was given the business community zoning designation, but there is quite a bit of industrial zoning around it. I'm going to call it west, although I know it's northwest. To the west is County M2, which is industrial. To the north is annexed Union Pacific Railway, which is zoned light industrial in the city. And to the east, again, County M1 industrial zoning. And then further to the northeast, a large industrial area in the city of Nampa. Across Caldwell Boulevard, we got more commercial zoning. Here's our site plan. 2 buildings proposed, totaling about 650,000 square feet of industrial with 15 to 20,000 square feet of supportive office. And those office are kind of the nodes in there that are in orange. We have 4 access points, 2 on Middleton Road and 2 on Caldwell Boulevard. It's kind of we're calling it a courtyard design. So All the docks for this project are internal to the site, and you can see the large truck parking area there in the center of the project. So we'll have no doors facing Caldwell Boulevard or Middleton. We're on a pretty tight timeline. We'd like to get going as soon as possible. We basically have our building permit drawings complete, ready to submit once council approves the rezone. We think we'll start construction in Q1 of 2023 and be complete in Q2 or 3 of 2024. Already a significant amount of interest in space in the project from potential users. This site, one of the major factors you all consider on a rezone is compatibility. So we prepared this slide just to kind of give you a real, broad overview of what's going on in the area. The areas I've highlighted in red, I would classify as industrial uses or light industrial uses, storage, construction yards, Simplot processing facilities, things like that. The uses I've highlighted in orange are auto sales or salvage yards. And then the remaining area across, again, Caldwell Boulevard is a mobile home park in residential. One additional feature not highlighted, but as this property comes to the hard corner on Middleton and Caldwell Boulevard, that is slated to be a convenience store, so a gas station convenience store. I'm not sure where they are in the application process, but we're working with them on cross-access easements at this point. We've seen their design, so they're fairly far along.
That land is not, that parcel's not yours. I mean, you're not.
Vice Chair Kirkman, that's correct. We're not here to rezone that. That'll stay the existing zoning, as far as I know, which supports the use that they've proposed. We do think it's a compatible use, though. Any other specific questions I'm happy to answer. Again, we think the railroad as a buffer to the north really helps with compatibility that direction. Caldwell Boulevard, a significant arterial road to the south, 5 lanes, almost 100 feet of right-of-way. And then what little residential there is there, they do have a pretty nice sound attenuation wall that was constructed when Caldwell Boulevard was expanded. So again, we think the use is compatible with our surroundings, and the zoning would be compatible as well. Another thing we consider on a rezone is it in the best interests of the city? We do think it's in the best interests and furthers the comp plan goals of economic development. The numbers, although I've been here before you many times on industrial projects, and a lot of them are coming online, the numbers for vacancy continue to remain very low. Citywide in Nampa, just under 1.5%. This project's in what TOK classifies as the South Nampa region, which has 0 vacancy for industrial currently. And again, we think that there's a significant amount of absorption still to occur in the Treasure Valley. Probably still about 1.5 million square feet this year, in addition to the million that's been built, and into the future, 2.5 to 3 million square feet each year for the foreseeable future. So again, we do think this project helps fill that need and is in the best interest of the city. Getting into design. The staff report is a little confusing on design because we were a little slow in getting Rodney our design, and I hope he can provide some more clarity on his conditions of approval. But in the last week or so, we've really refined the design, which is what you see before you tonight. Again, in addition to the concept plan, these designs would all be attached to our development agreement and bind us to these standards. We've focused primarily on the south facade of Building 2, which is the building closest to Caldwell Boulevard. So this is that facade. You can see we have a significant amount of glazing, which has been an issue we've all discussed quite a bit. In the commercial design review standards, you ask for 20% glazing. This is the highest amount of glazing I've seen on an industrial project of this size. So on that south facade, 14.6% glass. We're doing a mix of materials to provide, visual interest and different focal points. We also have quite a bit of roofline variation on that facade as well. I want to show you a couple renderings. This would be from the entrance on Caldwell Boulevard, closest to Middleton, looking northwest. Again, right at the center of the building, we have two pop-outs with elevated roof lines as a focal point with a lot of glass. This is that same view from Caldwell Boulevard. We are proposing a landscape buffer. Wanted to show the trees we'll be planting. And then this is from the southwest corner, so kind of from that C-store. So on the right side, you're seeing the east facade and what would be the Middleton frontage. We did not propose quite as much glazing on this frontage. We think it's still a good amount of glazing, is in line with other industrial projects that the city's approved recently. We think reduced glazing's warranted here because we have quite a bit of setback from Middleton, about 100 to 150 feet. And we also have some buffer with that C-store. Okay, so we do agree with staff's analysis. We only have one modification that we're requesting to the conditions of approval, and that is in lieu of going through design review as recommended by Rodney prior to us providing the designs, we would ask for your recommendation tonight of approval with a development agreement binding us to the concept plan and the design standards. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Is there any thought to accessing Union Pacific Railroad for this project on the north side of that project?
We
Like with
have
a spur or something like that in this area?
Vice Chair Kirkman, we have looked at that a little bit. With the spurs already at Simplot, just to the east, they're not super supportive of any more spurs, just because of line confusion. Right. Also, we're looking more at a light industrial use, so we think we'll have more small truck traffic, light manufacturing users. So not necessarily needing the rail as much.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right.
All right.
We'll have Rodney come up and refute everything you just said.
All right. Thank you very much.
I'm not going to do that.
I know you're not.
Okay, give me just a second. All right. Chairman Kirkman and Commissioners, for the record, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. Much of what I have in my staff report is covered already, but I'll try to get to some of the meat of some things that we need to discuss. Let's see, so the staff recommendation it was a little bit unclear, as was mentioned. There wasn't the detail that I needed to analyze this to confirm one way or another. Even with the changes in the design review, the design of the buildings, there's still some subjectivity, right? That's part of the reason you're here. And staff sometimes will have a hard time making an objective decision about whether it should be approved or not. And so we're kind of in that situation here. But I'll just go through the conclusions of law that must be met in order for this rezone to be found or to be recommended. The proposed map amendment is or would be in harmony with the city's currently adopted comprehensive plan and comprehensive plan land use map. Our map allows you to stretch one parcel deep. This project originally was 2 parcels. They vacated a property line in order to make it 1 parcel and extend that industrial designation from the north over across this entire parcel. So staff finds that this, it is compliant with this conclusion of law. The next one is the proposed map amendment would provide for proposed use or set of uses that would be at least reasonably compatible with existing adjoining property uses. This required finding is challenging for staff to determine the project's compliance without details, and so in the staff report, this was really difficult for me. I didn't have the details of the design to see if it was compatible, if it could be reasonably compatible. Even with that, your decision today is really the crux here of whether this should be considered compatible. Then the third one, the proposed map amendment is or would make a change on the land use map of the city, which would establish an area of zoning the same as or compatible with immediately adjoining districts. So similar to the previous proposed findings, staff believes this project may be compatible with adjoining districts if certain conditions are put in place to mitigate concerns. Directly to the south, on the south side of Caldwell Boulevard, is the Evergreen Mobile Home Park. As has been mentioned, the mobile home park is zoned both RD and BC. Traditionally, industrial and residential land uses have not been viewed as compatible with each other. However, the Caldwell Boulevard is a major arterial and state roadway between these two uses. This roadway may be found to act as a transition between the two uses. In addition, other methods such as increased landscaping, graduated height and scale of buildings and materials can be used to help create compatibility. Other properties in the area are zoned BC, community business. These properties will require design review for approval of development. So staff suggests that the proposed zone could be compatible with the BC zone if conditions of design standards are placed on the approval. Next one is the proposed map amendment is not or are not or would not create a spot zone having a section of one kind of zoning surrounded by another, having no supportive basis per the adopted comprehensive land use map so as to only serve to benefit the applicant. Staff finds that the proposed IL zoning would not create a spot zone because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan future land use map, because the industrial designation may be stretched to this property. And number 5, the proposed amendments are or would be in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary. This criterion is not clearly defined in city or state code enough to analyze this from an objective perspective. Staff finds that the comprehensive plan identifies the need for a variety of land uses throughout the community. The plan also identifies the need for job-creating land uses. However, this conclusion of law requires a subjective determination for compliance. State and local code establishes the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council to be able to consider all the facts of the case and make a decision regarding this criterion. Okay, so details of the property. The comprehensive plan, you can see there that it's a little bit difficult to see this, but this is kind of the boundary of that industrial designation right here. So all of this is industrial, and it can be stretched one parcel deep to this parcel. The current designation, though, is commercial. It is zoned BC, as you can see there, a little closer view, IL just to the north. It's undeveloped farmland. We've talked about a lot of the land uses in the area already. There are utilities in the area that are available, and I don't need to go over those in specifics, but our engineering division is here today to help us if there are questions about that. And then just quick history. I know he's covered the annexation in 2000. In 2021, 2020, I couldn't remember the exact date, couldn't find it, but property boundary adjustment for a future C-store occurred, and that's in that area down on the southern section here, that corner down there. And then spring of 2022, vacation of the property line, which was right down, I believe it was right down the center here, in order to make it one property. So applicable regulations, the land uses are listed in 10.3.2 of our code. You know these specifics here for development agreement. The signs, we can cover those if you need, but they're in your staff report. And then correspondence, standard response from building department and then engineering division conditions were pretty standard as well. So staff analysis, let me pull that up. The property is located within the commercial land use setting designation on the comprehensive plan future land use map, but the industrial setting directly to the north can be stretched 1 parcel deep. Land uses, this area is a mixture of existing land uses that can be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan future land use map and zoning districts adopted for the area. There are both old residential properties, industrial uses, and commercial uses in the immediate area. Since the comprehensive plan allows for a stretching of the industrial land use setting and the proposed zoning is consistent with some of the existing land uses in the area, the commission may consider the proposed zoning map amendment to be appropriate. The request is necessary because the proposed use is not allowed in the BC zone, and therefore the rezone to IL is required. Promotion of zoning purposes, that among the general and NAMPA endorsed purposes of zoning is to promote orderly, systematic development and patterns thereof which preserve and or enhance public health, safety, and welfare. Staff notes that any site development will be regulated by and through the building permit review process and in accordance with the IL zone regulations. Public interest. Caldwell Boulevard has been, it's been traditionally commercial and used as primarily for that reason. And so public interest, I just posed that question. There may be an interest in keeping that commercial versus industrial, but there are existing commercial along that corridor as well. And then the development agreement, you can use that development agreement to put in place conditions on the property. And I'll get into a little more detail on that, but for design review, we don't have any standards in place for industrial. We've met as a committee to look at design review standards for industrial, but we haven't, it hasn't gone to the council for approval. It's currently with the mayor. She's considering those recommendations. I'm going to talk to her tomorrow morning as well about those recommendations and see how she wants to proceed, because we have so many industrial projects coming forward. We want people to know what's expected of them. And it's difficult right now, this transition when design review is being requested and design standards are expected, but we don't have them in code. We don't have them in place. However, in this case, it's going from BC to industrial. It's already required currently to have the design review. And so there is some kind of, we've had precedent for this, that we require design standards because it was BC, the properties around it will be required to have design review. And so there's some expectation that would occur, that there would be some design elements. Okay, so design review, I wanted to just highlight what's in our code currently in a few key areas. So 1034-10A1A, again, these are not required of industrial zones, but these would be required for the BC. One of the following elements, color, material, or texture shall not exceed 50% of the primary facade area or 70% of any other facade. 1034-10A1C talks about the primary wall facade should be at least 2 textures or materials. C2, the primary wall materials shall be non-reflective. C3, they should have a minimum of 25% glazing. The The design review committee has typically waived that, and they are permitted by code to do that, to waive when it's appropriate, that requirement of 25%. Industrial, from our committee, we found that most of the comments have been industrial shouldn't have that much glazing. It makes it almost, makes it very challenging to do industrial work inside a building that has that much glazing. 103410A1E are visual displacements. The structure walls, 100 feet or greater in length, shall have changes in roof height, and they should break up the flat plane of such walls as well. I didn't highlight that, but I noticed on the drawings that we saw today, the renderings, that some of that brick columns, I thought they stuck out a little bit. That's a question maybe for the applicant about that, to break up that flat wall, to see if those could stick out rather than just be flat. E2, public entrances shall be clearly identifiable. That was pretty clear. Then E3 was overhead doors for service or repair activities or for loading and unloading shall be located at the side of the building which lies away from the residential use. Or, some of mine is not shown here. Or other barrier is used to separate the two. And then the last one here on this screen, loading dock shall not face the front of the property. It's a little bit unique here because the loading docks on the north building do face the front of the property, but it faces internally because there's another building in front of it. So there may be, we need to think about that when we make the motion today, if you decide to approve this.
But isn't the intent to shield the
Yeah.
trucks from the
Right.
loading docks?
Yeah, so you can see that here, these loading docks are here and here. So our current code would, for BC zone, would say you couldn't do this one, but that's not the intent. The intent is to screen it from other uses around there or the main road. So this is the north elevation that they provided just recently. And I'll get into this, but these with the little, I don't know what you call them, hash marks or something along the tops here are actually showing glazing. And the bottom here is showing the entire structure or the entire facade of the north elevation. And so that would be here along building 1. Oh, yeah, I pointed out that glazing. All of this, kind of a primary entrance to the office, shows a lot of glazing on that corner. And then those ones across the top. Glazing again with the blue arrow. This is the east elevation. You can see that over here. The south elevation, this is those loading docks. This is just a section of the entire facade down below. This is the west elevation of building 1. The south elevation of building 2. So this would be the most visible of all of the facades because it's fronting Caldwell Boulevard. And here's a legend. As you can see, those marks there showing where the glazing is. And there's those columns that, it was my understanding that those stuck out. So it'd be, again, a question for the applicant. The north elevation of building 2, facing inward to the center of the property. And then the west elevation of building 2. Again, not really a lot of glazing except for the corner here, which would be right up here. So they showed quite a few changes after I expressed some concerns about design review standards. I'm going to go through from left to right. I know these aren't visible very well. So I'm going to go through left to right to show you. They changed it to have the upper cantilevered shelf removed. It was a little tiny, you can see that right there sticking out, and that has been removed. The storefront height increased from 8 feet to 9 feet. The egress doors added at various locations. The roof drain leader added at various locations. Office node with storefront added. Again, office node added. So we break up that long extent of wall, at least to some degree, with these additional office nodes. And then down below, you can see the glazing in blue. And you've seen all of these. I just put them in here for my records. So I wanted to talk about the development agreement. You've got a development agreement in your packet with their proposed changes. And essentially, in this one, they're saying that they would have the right to develop the property. And it's my understanding that what they're saying here is that even conditional use permits would not be required. They would just be automatically allowed for industrial. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. And then these are the changes that they made to the most recent, what you have in your packet. They made these two changes. So that first one there, and then this one here. And essentially it's saying, here are all the facades, here are the concepts, we will be compliant with that, and they're asking for this without having to go through the design review committee. And instead, it would be a staff level review to see if it was compliant with what they've presented to you today. So the recommended conditions of approval have already been addressed. We've heard that from the applicant, except for number 10. So what I did is option number 1 is what was in your code, or what was in your packet. I did notice that we said 40% instead of 50% of a change element. We, as a committee, that's what the committee recommended, was 40% rather than 50%. That just means that you're not having as much change needed as a commercial zoned project. And I made a mistake and left the 5 on there. I said 40%, but I didn't change the 5 to a 4. So I made that change on the screen today, and I would hope you would include that in your motion as presented today. And then, so that's the first one. That would go to the design review committee to determine if they're meeting all of these standards. These are the standards that we came up with as a committee. They're all the things that we discussed in that committee. It's not official yet, but these are the ones that I recommended based on the committee's recommendation. Option 2, same thing with the 40%, but I changed the top line here to say that it's through staff review only rather than through the design review committee. And then option 3 is essentially what the applicant has requested, but I've had conversations with our attorney about their request to not have have to go through the CUP process. And he didn't feel like it was legal for us to do that through development agreements, to just outright permit something that would usually require a CUP. So I changed the language slightly here and just said any uses allowed through a conditional use permit shall first obtain such before granting of a building permit. So if your will is to approve what the applicant has suggested, then that would be option 3 with my changes based on the attorney's recommendations. The second one, again, was just the change to be a staff review of all of the conditions that the committee came up with. And then the first one would be what I recommended in the staff report for design review committee. And here is a motion for your consideration. I put in here with the exception of condition number 10, which shall be option 2 or 3 as presented in the staff presentation. Really, I think after reviewing this, it looks like I should have put 1 as well because of that change from 50% to 40%. So if you want to choose one of the options, go through 1, 2, or 3. And I would stand for questions. A lot there, sorry.
Any clarification questions for?
Yeah. The entrances are going to be on Caldwell Boulevard and then also on Middleton, correct? 2 and 2?
Middleton,
Yeah.
see if I can get back to it. Oh, there we go, maybe.
I'm more concerned about
Yeah,
the boulevard,
yep,
which a lot of traffic goes down there. Now, if we have big semi-trucks wanting to turn in there, they're going to be slowing down right after they got up speed at the intersection. So is there going to be a turn bay or anything there for them, or what's going to keep people from not running into the trucks when they slow down to make the turn? And they have to turn wide in so many areas too, so they're going into the outside lane that way.
So Caleb Leclerc, Assistant City Engineer for Nampa. Any access on Caldwell Boulevard, first and foremost, is going to have to obtain approval from ITD, because ITD still manages Caldwell Boulevard. I will say we have been working with the applicant to complete a traffic impact study. Your specific question about trucks moving off of the boulevard into the site. A right turn analysis was done through the traffic impact study. It didn't indicate one was necessary. That's typically because of the fact that it already has 2 lanes of travel. So the idea would be that vehicles would use the inside lane as they're turning in, and it gives opportunity for vehicles to move over to the outside lane. With that said, we will require a truck turn analysis be completed with a building permit application, just to make sure that operationally it is sufficient. It may warrant a right turn lane just to facilitate those trucks being able to turn in without impacting traffic, so.
Yeah, that's my concern, is that we don't have people running into the rear end of these trucks as they slow down to make the turn in.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, as long as you're going to address it.
We will look at it at building permit level, yeah.
Otherwise, I like it. It's a lot better looking than some of the things that are there now. And as far as the loading docks, I think that's the best way to go, is the way they have it. Otherwise, you'd have, if they were facing the railroad tracks, all the people coming over the tracks would see all those trucks back in there. So this hides them as best could be hidden. So I like the design with the warehousing, truck loading bays in the back, or in the middle rather, in between the 2 buildings. That's
Hey,
all I got.
Rodney, on the, is glazing a requirement in that big paragraph there?
yeah, right. We put it as 10% in the recommendation.
Did you do the math on the
So
glazing on the
the
south
applicant did.
elevation?
The
I don't trust
applicant
their
did.
math, I want your math. Just kidding. They're developers, come on.
Yeah. So 14%, 14.6%.
Yeah, at 25%, they need 15,000 feet, and that's crazy in an industrial building. Those windows never get washed for a warehouse.
The Amazon project that was developed by this applicant, did that go through kind of the same process with design review and some of those same, is that the precedent that you mentioned?
There's a precedent for like Fuller 84, which they did. Amazon, I wasn't here when that happened, so I can't really speak to the details there. But I know that there were some design elements that didn't meet our design standards for Amazon. So I'm not sure how that got approved exactly, but, yeah, sorry.
Any other questions for staff?
All right, yeah.
Well, we'll open it up for a public hearing, since this is a public hearing item, and we have one person signed up. Mr. Frank Greenleaf, who does not wish to speak, and there's no one else signed up. So is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak for or against this project? Okay,
Make a motion, to close the public hearing.
Can we ask the applicant a couple more questions first?
Well, yeah, we can close public hearing now and bring the applicant back up, since there's no one that has.
No.
Oh.
You need to have the public hearing open for the
Oh,
applicant to
for the
rebut.
applicant to come up, okay. Mr. Applicant, that's what he called you, so I just stuck with the,
Thank you, Chairman
Yeah.
Kirkman. I can answer questions first, or I have a few comments just to respond to Rodney a bit, whichever you prefer.
why don't you go ahead and just
Okay,
respond to
great.
some of the things that come up, you might answer his question.
I'll go in reverse order because I feel like that's the best. Precedent-wise, Amazon was a project we did work on. It's in the GB1 zoning district, Gateway Business. Amazon's a little different use, right? Because it wasn't speculative, they knew the use, and so they didn't ask for a rezone. That land's still GB1, and they got a conditional use permit for a truck terminal. Because it's GB1, they did have to go through design review. The city council also required GB1, landscaping. So that's why the frontage has that large setback with grass and trees, because it is still GB1. One interesting thing about Amazon, though, is it did ask for a height variance. So it's almost 65, I think it's 65 feet tall to the parapet, whereas most of the industrial we brought recently is more along the 40-foot range. So about a third the height. In terms of precedent of what we're asking for today, LDK's Shannon project went this route, a development agreement with a conceptual site plan and elevations. And then just last month, the AT Industrial project on Highway 16, also a development agreement with site plan and elevations. And I know I agree with Rodney, we're in a weird state of flux here with standards coming but not here yet, because we're looking for a building permit, in August. And so we'll sort of be still in limbo with no design review or standards. So that's why we're trying to kind of clear the runway now for what this is going to look like, knowing that the standards probably won't be there when we're coming for a building permit.
Question real quick, Mr. Bauer, sorry. Did either the LDK or AT's project require, was it a rezone application, or it was just annexation and zoning, correct?
Mr. Chairman, LDK was this exact rezone, BC to IL. AT's was an annexation to IL.
Did that go through design review, the first one from the BC to IL?
Vice Chair, no. It was a bit of a hybrid. Christie might be rolling her eyes at me. It did not go through design review committee. It had a staff level design review approval. Yeah. Okay. So that was the precedent. Great question on the turning lanes, Commissioner Kehoe. We love working with Caleb. We'll provide all the analysis necessary and build whatever Caleb requires on Caldwell Boulevard. With respect to the development agreement, Rodney had a few tweaks to the language. We're fine with those. Our intent wasn't to try to usurp what was allowed and conditionally allowed, just to clarify that we can have the full breadth of uses. If one of the users, our future tenants, wants to do a use that's only conditionally allowed, which I don't anticipate, we would expect to come through with a CUP for that use. So again, that language is fine. On the brick columns, those are not, they don't have any pop-out feature. They're just a change in texture and change in color. They use that popcorn style paint that helps differentiate it from the base color. And then on design, Rodney walked you through most of the Chapter 34 design elements. They were all highlighted in green. I do feel like this project is meeting the intent of of those requirements for the most part. You know, the roof line variation, we meet all the change in materials. We're trying to hide the doors. Really, the only thing that we're missing is the glazing for the most part. And we've really tried to up the glazing on Caldwell Boulevard, recognizing that there is a planned commercial feel for Caldwell Boulevard. And so that is why we've spent so much time and eventually money on making that look like it is. It has that commercial feel that hopefully, you know, the area develops around us. You know, the salvage yards are gone, the used car lots are gone, and there are more, you know, light industrial and commercial uses that are similar in the area. And Commissioner Morgan, I'd stand for any questions.
Oh, just a couple easy ones. You thinking this is about 40 foot tall?
Vice Chair Kirkman, Commissioner Morgan, it is 45 on the pop-outs, those raised areas, and 40 feet on the majority of the roof line.
And do you know offhand what your setback is from the boulevard?
Well, we're going to do the 15-foot landscape buffer, and then we have parking, a drive aisle, another parking. So I would guess 15 plus 50, 65-ish feet, 70 feet.
It's all speculative now. You don't have any tenants. You know how many, like, are you planning on, I guess, how many tenants are you hoping to fit into that front building?
Yeah,
Or do you
Commissioner
know yet?
Morgan.
Any idea?
No, we do. We'd be happy, right, if one user came and they wanted it all, but we're sort of planning to demise down between 6 and 8 users in the front building and 2 to 3 in the back.
And are you picturing these types of tenants being like public facing where people will be going in and visiting, or is it less so?
Less so. I mean, we're again providing the office nodes as an accessory to the industrial users. We don't anticipate a lot of like commercial pedestrian traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So you demise down to about 50,000 square feet per space. On
Yes,
the
sir.
front building.
I was just thinking about the exterior facade on that facing the boulevard, and I know this is not a requirement because it's going to IL or it's an IL zone, but it is for a BC zoned. You've got 54 feet, is that what I was looking at, between those so-called pillars? The brick that really aren't pillars, that look like they're columns? Look like 54 feet. And I was just thinking of the visual displacements, because that's just gonna be one solid, flat facade along Caldwell Boulevard, correct?
Commissioner Kirkman, that's correct. We have a couple, the office nodes, so that the areas where you see the roof line elevation change and the additional glazing, those will have some facade variation. Those will come out to some extent. We're also, you know, going to do some landscape median areas in the parking area, which will help break up the facade as well.
So those facades are coming out a couple, 3 feet then? Okay. So it won't be straight.
Right, okay, good.
18
So the
inches
one, there's at least 4 spots along that whole facade that are gonna be broken up.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, that's what I wanted to make sure.
And on that same subject, isn't that kind of like optical illusion when you have the different colors and different textures, that it almost looks like it's budding out?
Vice Chair Kirkman, Commissioner Kehoe, that's the intent, correct? With the change in not only colors, but textures of the colors, we are trying to provide, you know, a visual depth.
Right. It's a lot easier to build that than it is to actually move them in and out 2 and 3 feet as you go up and down the building.
Yes, sir. This will be a concrete tilt-up construction like we've all been seeing. So yeah, changing the plane is very difficult.
All right, thank you.
You'd have to rent it for $2 a square foot if you build it the other way.
It's got lots of nice windows.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Okay,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Now make a motion.
Now I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
All right, public hearing is, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Sorry, Michelle. Okay, public hearing is closed.
I like it. I think it'll look good.
Yeah, I think it'll help to get rid of the other areas, right, like he was talking about, the junkyard and the auto yards. I think it's a good addition to the corner. I'm very pleased with it, actually.
I'll say that it's a good-looking building, especially for industrial, and it'll look a lot better than what's out there now. I'm really concerned with putting that much industrial frontage on the boulevard. It's not gonna be public-facing, it's gonna be, it's not what's there. I think there's a reason we have that zone, community business. And so it's tough because, yes, it's an improvement to what's there, but is it what we want? Is that what we want the uses to be along the boulevard long-term? Or, I have a hard time with it because of that, but I'd like to know your thoughts.
I agree with you to a certain extent. It's gonna put a lot of truck traffic on the boulevard, and that Karcher access to the freeway is
It's a mess already.
hard to drive a car through.
That's a mile away.
It is a
Gets
mile
stacked
away,
up
but
there,
it's
though.
gonna be the interchange where they access the freeway, and industrial trucks, proximity to the freeway is like number one. 50,000 foot per user. It's really hard to demise smaller than that for like a retail location because you end up with like bowling alley type space. But there will be a certain amount of pedestrian, customer-facing traffic with showrooms and whatnot. Probably like electrical suppliers, floor covering people.
Sure.
A bunch of different wholesale type stuff that retail businesses run out of there too. It's a lot of scale for that site. But I agree with Steve and Tom that it's a great looking industrial building. Sorry, Christie.
Well, it is, but do we want that great-looking industrial building right there, right on the frontage of one of our main thoroughfares? And you bring up the truck traffic, yeah, they're all gonna come right there off of the Karcher Road and.
The other option is just down the boulevard or the other way to Caldwell, which, I don't know. A lot of industrial coming on the market too in the next 2 years. And I'm a big advocate for that because
No, we need it.
we've been underserved for
Yeah.
a lot of years.
I feel like if it was just on the back part of this lot, I would be more okay with it, but
Yep. A lot of square footage.
Discussion?
And I know there's precedent on the design review. This is the boulevard. It's kind of the entryway, one of the main corridors to the city, off the freeway. I have a hard time just saying, let's put it into the development agreement and hope everybody's happy, right? So
I agree with that.
I think they're gonna meet all the conditions that the DR committee would ask for. Unless I'm missing something, but we are already zoned BC. I kind of like option 2 the best.
That was my next thought is if you guys want to go ahead with the project, or if you find enough good things about it, you want to go ahead, which option do we want? I'm leaning more towards 2 because it seems to have more, covered more of the bases without so much open thought. It's pretty well written down what we want and how we want it, except for the percentages which get changed.
Is the boulevard scheduled to be widened ever? Can it be widened with how things are laid out there? Mr. Engineer?
There's not any plans right now to widen the boulevard. I think the only real plans are to do some access management on it. It might go to more restricted access on the boulevard. Center median with specific turn bays or U-turn locations. It's possible that that could be where it goes. And then traffic signal, operational stuff, trying to time things better. But I will say with the traffic impact study, it did indicate that Caldwell and Middleton required some work. And so this project, along with the gas station convenience store project, will be working together to address that mitigation. They'll also be required to do a center turn lane all the way down the frontage of Middleton to accommodate the turn movements in and out of the site. So
That stretch of Boulevard is horrendous. Honestly, it's nuts. Has there been any discussion that you've heard about a possible interchange between Karcher and Franklin at some point in the future?
no.
That would solve some problems. Or create more problems, one of the two.
Probably 2 miles apart. You have 2 miles in
I feel like we're setting a precedent here with what's gonna be developed as the rest of this gets improved along this, you know. Are we gonna, do we wanna create an industrial corridor or keep it as a commercial corridor?
Well, if it was an industrial corridor, it would be less traffic than it would be if it was a bunch of small
Well,
businesses.
everybody's still going there between Nampa and Caldwell.
Yeah, I don't think that would change the traffic flow. I mean, that's the main connection to Caldwell outside the interstate.
I mean, on the land entitlement, I think it's totally feasible, given that there's industrial adjacent right to the north. And this site plays a little better for an industrial site just because it has access to the boulevard without winding through a bunch of other roads, right? And it's kind of a straight shot to the interchange, although it might take a little longer.
Further down the boulevard towards Caldwell, the next industrial area is probably that Franklin exit out there where there's nothing else on the boulevard that's industrial. Do you know, Rodney, or, I don't know, I can't think of anything. It seems like pretty much all mixed use or commercial down through that stretch.
Yeah, I think, like, down by the DMV.
Yeah, or
Is that
even,
what you're
yeah,
talking
even
about?
past down towards Walmart. I mean, just all the way down, really, towards Caldwell. I don't think there's any other industrial,
Towards Caldwell, it isn't Caldwell.
well, I know, but you, down towards the Walmart there. So I'm not so sure it's gonna create an industrial park just because of what else is on that stretch of roadway.
It's kind of an industrial park in itself.
Yeah.
Bigger than most of the industrial parks
Right.
in town, so. Which again, I think is a needed asset class for the market.
And Chairman, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear. I assume it is, but option number two was just a staff review. So you'd put it into the development agreement for staff to review it. Or option one would be the design review committee looking at those same criteria. So just want to make sure that's clear.
And option 3, is that the one where our attorney recommended option 3 because of the conditional use?
So they didn't recommend, they just analyzed what the applicant had presented and said, hey, we need to make sure that they're not getting approval to get a CUP without going through the process, basically.
Option 3 would just be they get everything in the development agreement and nothing else has to come back even for staff
Correct.
review.
Yeah, and the only thing that's that would be in the development agreement in option 3 is what's in your packet, plus the changes he's recommended today, and the change that our attorney is recommending. But it essentially comes down to, here's the site plan, here's the concept drawings. We'll stay pretty close to these things. And you're not going through a process to say, well, how much glazing do you have? As long as it's compliant with the concept that they've presented. So to some degree, that it's a little bit challenging when we do things like that, because we are sometimes having to interpret, does this comply with the concept drawing? They may have changes in their design, and that's challenging for us to do that as staff. But if you have specifics and you put it in the development agreement, staff can review that and say, yes, it complies. But, I mean, the design review committee is there for interpretation of things that we don't necessarily can't say objectively, this complies.
What's the time frame of the DR committee process?
So if they go to the design review committee, they have to submit usually by the 3rd week of the month prior. And then we meet the 3rd Monday of every month. So it's usually a month in advance of the committee meeting that we need to have all the materials turned in.
More for option 2, at least then that there's some oversight, but it doesn't have to go through the complete design review.
What's staff level process?
It's building permit. So we look at each building permit that they turn in and see if it complies with that, or with all of these conditions.
But do you reach out to?
If it doesn't, you make them change it?
Correct.
Does that happen frequently?
Yeah.
Seems so easy on paper.
Well, I mean, it's like, why do we have a design review committee? Not that industrial requires design review yet, but we're going that way.
And if there was a project to require it, wouldn't it be one that's on one of our main
That's
thoroughfares at the entrances?
for rezone from commercial.
Well, Michelle, why don't you make a motion? We haven't heard from you, so you can just make the motion.
Yeah, I'm still undecided.
Haven't heard from Brett.
I like it. I don't know, I think option 2 would be okay. I mean, do we trust staff?
Depends on what day it is.
Is that a rhetorical question?
I don't know, for this area of the boulevard, you guys know what it looks like. It's pretty scary in most spots. And I think this is gonna be a great improvement.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's gonna help
that's the way I look at it.
encourage maybe future sale of further properties and redevelopment of those properties.
You know, thinking about traffic too, I mean, yeah, there's gonna be some truck traffic, it's gonna be an added to what's already there, but if this didn't go there, it remained commercial, and commercial went in there, I think that would generate even more traffic.
Yeah, if Walmart went in there,
Yeah,
there'd
or
be a lot more
anything
traffic
like
than this
that.
is gonna create.
Or they went down the street, so it won't be going in there, but something like.
No matter what, you're gonna have a lot more, commercial traffic than an industrial. I think that's something to consider also too. Traffic's gonna be horrendous no matter what.
There'll be quite a bit of it, though, that'll head south on Middleton and heading down to California and stuff. Instead of having to get out on 84, so
So I'll take a stab at a motion, I guess, big wimps.
Thank you.
And I'm going to make a motion to recommend approval of zoning map amendment from BC Community Business to IL and potential development agreement at, wait, do I need this?
All the way down.
IL zoning district at 2912 Caldwell Boulevard for Jeff Bauer, Givens Pursley LLP, representing Black Creek Limited Partnership and Pleasant Valley Limited Partnership, with all conditions of staff and conclusions of law. And since we don't have the DR final details tied down yet, I'm going to go with option 2 and have staff level approval as noted in the presentation tonight.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a conditional use permit for non-commercial kennel license for 4 dogs for Amber Luter, who's representing Robert Luter. Applicant here. Come on up and state your name and address for the record, and you can pull that thing down to wherever's comfortable.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Amber Luter, address 1619 East Sherman Avenue in Nampa. I'm here to try to get a conditional use permit so I can get a kennel license for mine and my family's 4 dogs. When we moved here, I bought a house with my parents, and I'm a single parent. My kids live downstairs with me. We have 2 dogs between me and my kiddos. And then my parents and my brother live upstairs. Between the 2 of them, they have 2 dogs. I definitely would have been doing this a lot sooner had I known I was supposed to be doing it. But unfortunately, the dogs were out for less than 5 minutes after the school got out. There's a school right in our backyard. So they dug in less than 5 minutes and wanted to go see their kids. So they found them. But animal control was also called. And I completely understand why. Since then, my family and I have built a fence about halfway through the backyard so that way when they go out to do their business, they have only half the yard. And if we're out there with them, then we can open that up and they have the entire yard to play, but we're out there with them. We also made sure that the main gate by the fence was more structurally sound. And we put grate underneath the ground. So if they try to dig, then it won't feel very nice. And they haven't done it since. So I'm hoping that stops everything. I have a backup plan just in case, though. I don't like shock collars, but they do have one that is a parameter, and I will be willing to do that too if I have to keep the dogs in. They wouldn't hurt a fly, but they can be scary looking. So
Is the house a single dwelling, or is there an apartment where
So-
some live and is it separated that way?
sorry, it is a single dwelling, and that was my complete fault because we're 2 separate households. I was just in my head thinking that it was fine, but it's not. So that's what I'm hoping that we can make okay.
Has Pixie been taken care of?
She has, yeah. She got spayed 2 weeks ago. So she has a little stitch issue, but she's doing good.
It sounds like you know this dog.
She got microchipped too.
I would read the application, it's got the names of the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, my Pixie, she's the
sounded
smallest. So she got
Pixie and I
spayed.
have personal friends.
Yeah,
All right.
she's the best.
Very good. Any questions for the applicant? All right, if not, we'll hear from staff and maybe get you back up here to answer some
Thank you.
questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Vice Chairman Kirkman and Commissioners. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. And the request before you this evening is for approval of a conditional use permit to keep 4 dogs at 1619 East Sherman Avenue.
The property is located just north of Sherman Elementary. It shares a common lot line with the school property. The school is zoned RA, but all the other properties around it are zoned RS6. This is a view of the front of the property. So according to our use schedule, of course, a non-commercial kennel license to keep any number over 2 dogs does require approval of a conditional use permit by you. In our code 1021-3D, it refers to potbelly pigs and dogs. They can't have more than 2 of them either together or separately. So either 2 dogs, 2 pigs, or 1 dog and 1 pig. So anything over that requires a conditional use permit and a non-commercial kennel license. So as per usual, the conditional use permit has the 3 criteria that you need to find when you're making your decision. Is it compatible with the livability of the abutting properties? Will it provide a convenient and functional environment? And will it enhance the successful operation of the area? The only correspondence that we got from agencies was code compliance, and they don't have any issues with this property at this time, aside from the number of dogs. And when requested, there was no follow-up comments received from animal control. So the surrounding land uses are primarily single-family residential with the school to the south. The lot is an average-sized 6,000 square foot lot. It appears that animal control was called by the school one day when they got into the schoolyard by digging under the fence. The applicant states that they understand why it was called. She did state that in her testimony. And they state that 1 dog is trained as a service dog. The 2nd dog has potential to take training to be a service dog. The 3rd dog is of advanced age, and the 4th dog is younger but is mild-mannered. In your staff report, I did give you an attachment that gives you a description between how Idaho law sees service animals versus emotional support animals and the ADA guidelines regarding service animals versus emotional support animals, and we can go over those if you'd like. The recommended conditions of approval are listed in your staff report and will apply to this property only and for these specific dogs. So as these dogs pass away, then they will not be able to add more dogs. And this is your potential motion. I will stand for any questions.
Christie, if they had 4 dogs and all of them were service dogs, qualified service dogs, would they have to get a kennel license then? Since
So Commissioner Kehoe, our code allows 1 service dog to be exempted from the
Okay, so
count.
just 1.
So anything, over the 2 in addition, they'd still have to get that.
So we counting 4 or 3 because the service dog is allowed anyway?
In this case, probably 3, because there is 1 technically a service dog.
Right, okay, thank you.
Do we know if it's and I'll probably ask the applicant this, but we know if it's a service dog per the code? Per what?
Yeah,
a
you'll
service
need to
dog
ask
is?
the applicant.
Any other questions, staff? Okay, we'll open it up for a public hearing then, and I have 2 people here on this that signed up, Amber Luter. But I also have Savannah Sloan, and it looks like, and she noted hearing number 3. Savannah, are you here? Is that for hearing number 3? Is that for the next action item that you wanted to, or did you want to speak to this one?
It's for mine, but it can be for hers as well.
Well, you wrote hearing 3 on here, so I just want to make sure that if you want to speak to this one. No, that's,
We don't either.
I don't want to call you out like that, but if you want to speak to this one, you're more than welcome to stand and speak to this action item also.
I mean, it would apply to both.
But you'll have to speak.
Yeah, so just step up to the mic if you want to, and your name and address for the record, and
My name is Savannah Sloan. I live at 816 7th Avenue South, Nampa. And I just wanted to iterate that I've done my research as well, and the county and city laws regarding service animals do not comply with federal laws. In that if you have a service animal or multiple service animals and they provide that person or persons with multiple services, so you say you have an animal that's trained to remind you about like blood pressure or something like that. But then you have another animal that's trained to remind you to take a medication, because with different training, sometimes an animal can only do so much for one person. So depending on what the disability is, federally, people are allowed to have more than one service animal, and that is protected by federal law.
That's what I was saying.
Yes. That's it.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. I don't have anyone else signed up for this particular item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this particular action item? Okay, hearing none. Would you like to come back up to the mic? And
Sorry. To answer your question on the service dog, Freya, she's my brother's service dog. He has seizures, really bad ones where he loses his memory. So she's the only one currently not spayed, actually, because having her away is really difficult for him. He will lose his memory so much that he doesn't even know who we are, and he's scared of us, but he's not scared of her, and she will help him get to where he needs to be. And even if they're out and about, she'll get his cell phone so that he can call, and it's all labeled like mom, dad, stuff like that. So she is very needed in the family. And then my son, my middle son, he has speech and occupational therapy and a lot of learning and mental disabilities. His occupational therapist has said that Chance, who's his dog, should be his service dog because he has flourished since having him, and he qualifies for it. He doesn't understand how hard you push on something, and Chance is always helping with that. He's always the first one there and helping him. So I've thought about doing that, but they're never without each other right now as is, so it hasn't come up any further than that.
any other questions for applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Second.
Motion and second to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I'm making a note. Any opposed? I apologize, Michelle, for cutting you off. Okay. Public hearing is closed.
Like they got their only issue taken care of, so
Yeah, that's what I feel too.
I don't see a big issue with it.
Well, Tom?
Okay, well, I'll move to approve the conditional use permit for a non-commercial kennel license for 4 dogs in an RS6 zoning district at 1619 East Sherman Avenue for Amber Luter, representing Robert Luter, with all conditions and conclusions of law as proposed in the staff report.
Second.
All right, it's been motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Michelle?
Oh, sorry. I didn't make a note of it yet. Okay. Ms. Luter, before you leave, let me just read one thing to you real quick. So the CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department, so with the staff over there, with the appropriate fees. So no action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period, that 15 days, is concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. So after the 15 days from this hearing, check with staff, make sure there's no appeals, and you're off and running. All right. Thanks. All right, next item on the agenda is another CUP, conditional use permit for another non-commercial kennel license for 2 dogs and 2 pot-bellied pigs. Say that 5 times fast, Christie. In an RS6 single-family residential zone for Savannah Sloan. All right, you're up now. So name and address for the record.
All right, Savannah Sloan, 816 7th Avenue South, Nampa. I'm just here trying to keep my dogs and my pigs. I have lived there. I bought my house as a birthday present to me for my 24th birthday so that I had somewhere for me and my animals to live, because renting is impossible when you have pets. I've lived there for almost 4 years now, and out of those 4 years, about 2.5 or 3-ish years almost, I think, I've had the dogs and the pigs this entire time. I didn't know that we weren't supposed to, otherwise I would have done this sooner as well. It's been a non-issue for that time. I'm a veterinary technician, so animals come and go. I can tell you the pigs are not the weirdest thing that I've had at my house. I've also had a sloth hospitalized there. But the pigs came to me as a medical surrender because they were rejected by their mother when they were born. I bottle raised them. They're spayed. They're vaccinated. Pansy's gone in for emergency surgery for a mystery illness. I put a lot of money and love into them. They're house trained. They are trained on a harness. I've trained them to massage my lower back. I live at my house by myself. They are often in the house most of the time, like in the winter if it's cold, but they come and go out with the dogs as they want. I have a pen sectioned off in my yard because they like to dig and be pigs. And then they'll come in, they'll either get a bath or I baby wipe them, and then they'll like cuddle in bed with me. I'm that person, so I'm just trying to keep them. And then my 2 dogs that I have, Fart and Freckles, they are not left outside when I'm not home because Fart likes to escape. She will go above the fence, under the fence, through the fence. So my dogs are never outside when I'm not home. They're either at work with me or they're locked up in their kennels inside. Freckles is a rescue that was going to be euthanized from a hoarding situation. And that's how I got her. And then, again, she's inside as well because if she were to get out, nobody would be able to catch her. But they're trained. They bark, but I like that they bark a little bit because I live by myself. So they let me know when things are coming and going, which I appreciate, but they don't bark excessively. And again, they're not ever left outside. And if they are barking like excessively, I yell at them and they'll stop. Same thing with the pigs. They're pretty quiet, except they get excited when I get home because they love me and I love them and I give them food. And I kind of rile them and they get like the pig zoomies and they run around. It's really cute and they play with the dogs. They play with everybody. So I'm just trying to keep my animals.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I do. Savannah, in the application staff report, it says as of January 28th that you had 1 mini horse, 4 goats, 2 pigs, a whole bunch of chickens, 10 to 30 of them, 6 dogs, 2 roosters, and 3 rabbits. Do you still have all of those?
No, and I never had all of those. I had goats, 1 passed away, so now I have 1 goat, and now I've got my chickens, but it's in the allotted number of 10 chickens. I don't have any roosters.
Okay.
I don't have the rabbits. I gave those to my little cousin.
So you have rabbits and no rabbits?
I had rabbits, but I don't have them anymore.
have
I
any
gave
more,
them to
okay.
my cousin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're down to the horse. Where's he at?
She's service, so she's exempt.
Okay.
My dogs cannot be serviced, but she provides medical service. She is also house trained.
The miniature horse?
It's a miniature horse.
But you can have a miniature horse without a conditional use permit.
Yes, but because
But
I
will
have
this
the
still be
horse
a
and you can have a horse or a goat, but because I have 2, but I was told by Janet that the miniature horse is exempt because she's service.
All right. And how many chickens do you have, do you think? It says 10 to 30.
No, I never had 3 chickens. I have 10.
You have 10?
I have 10 chickens.
No roosters.
No roosters. Somebody has a rooster. I don't have a rooster.
Well, if the chickens and rooster are next door to each other,
My chickens, I clip their wings and they are fenced in. They cannot get out. There are chickens that roam around the neighborhoods. Those are not mine. Mine are fenced in, and that's mostly because, I don't know, there's been the avian flu. It's to protect
Yeah,
my own
right.
animals. They are
Okay.
always contained.
thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, Savannah. We'll hear from staff and may have some additional questions.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chairman Kirkman and Commissioners. Again, Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is approval of a conditional use permit for the non-commercial kennel license to keep 2 dogs and 2 potbelly pigs at 816 7th Avenue South. The property is in the center of Old Town Nampa and is surrounded by single-family residential homes, all zoned RS6. Again, The maximum number of pigs and dogs is 2 total. This exceeds that, therefore requires a conditional use permit per our schedule of uses. So the conditional use permit criteria, again, you will need to find in your decision, is it compatible with and does not affect the livability of the abutting properties? Will it provide a convenient and functional living environment? And will it enhance the successful operation of the area? So as you will see in your staff report, I didn't want to list out the entire animal control report, but there was an extensive history with this particular applicant. Code compliance has recently done an inspection due to a case they had opened for weeds and debris, which has been resolved. He claimed that he did hear a horse, but he did not smell or hear any other animals at that time. And then the building department has requested that if they do any accessory buildings, that they meet the Title IV building requirements in city code. So as far as public interest is concerned, Animal Control submitted their contact report, and it's attached to your staff report. Staff has recommended that you read through that report to kind of just see the different things that have happened on this property. There have been dogs at large, goats crying. She has reported that her dogs have been lost. And then the phone conversation where she talked through all of the different animals that Commissioner Kehoe listed. The vaccination records do appear to be up to date. There is a 50-page veterinarian report that is public record, but I did not attach it to your staff report because I didn't. If you want to look at it, you're more than welcome to give me a call and we can go over it. So city code addresses all of those previously mentioned animals, some of which, well, most of them, because they're ag animals, do not require a conditional use permit. So as listed here, 10 chickens are allowed, 3 ducks are allowed, a miniature horse or a pygmy goat is allowed. So if they're considering the miniature horse to be a service horse, that is an exempt animal. And then, so that would just leave the goat. And then the 2 potbelly pigs, along with the two dogs that she's requesting tonight. So in summary, again, that's what she would be able to keep. Because the conditional use permit's not required for all of the types of animals that are listed, staff is unsure of the number of animals that still remain on the property, but we are going off of what the code compliance officer indicated in his most recent inspection, claiming that he could not hear or smell any other animals on the property. So recommended conditions of approval are listed in your staff report and are specific to the dogs and pigs that currently reside at this home. And here's your potential motion. I will stand for any questions.
I have a question for you, Christy. Do you happen to know how wide that lot is? Those are pretty narrow over there.
That is a standard 6,000 square foot lot, so it will be 50 feet wide.
So according to the setback rules, then she wouldn't even be allowed to have the potbelly pigs if she's got to be 30 feet from property lines. If the lot's not at least 60 feet wide, you can't get 30 feet on each side.
That is a question for pasture area.
It says what it says in the, what is it, 1021 3F. Potbelly pigs has to be at least 30 feet from property lines, so.
Yep. At least 50 feet from any residential structure. But that's
Unless
for,
I'm reading it wrong, but.
well, that's for pens and stables. Isn't that the structure setback for pens and stables?
Runs, pens, wouldn't that be considered basically a run for the,
Well, if she's keeping them inside.
If she's keeping
though,
them in the house.
I think that's just if it's a permanent, that's where they're at all the time.
If she built a stable in the backyard, an accessory structure in the backyard to house them, then she'd have to meet this setback requirement. But because she keeps them in the house, that doesn't necessarily apply.
That's a good question. I wondered about that too, so thanks for asking.
I'm always, the service animal thing, and I know we're not looking at this in this particular issue, but is there verification required from the city to Okay, thank you. All right, well,
I have one question of the applicant,
yes.
if I may.
Savannah, if you would like to come back up to the podium. And let me just, I'm sorry? Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. We're gonna move to public hearing. We'll have the applicant come. Before the applicant, actually, before you stand up, let me just make sure that we get anybody else in here, because they may have a question that you can answer as the applicant, all right? So I'll just let them, whoever might have an opportunity to come up and speak. So I have the sign-in sheet for this particular action item. There is no one signed up to speak for the proposal, but I do have a gentleman, Joe Thompson, who has indicated that he would like to speak against the proposal. So Joe, if you're here, please come on up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and you can take your full 3 minutes or part of it.
Joe Thompson, 815 8th Avenue South. I live directly behind, across the alley. My biggest concern is obviously smell, bugs, a little bit of noise. You know, we have heard horses and goats in the past. That's about all I got to say, you know. Seems like a lot of animals for in-town lot, but other than that, not much to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I don't have anyone else signed up. Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against this proposal before we bring the applicant back up? Okay, Savannah, now you can come up and you can address what was proposed, and I think we have some questions for you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so as a vet tech, not all of the animals that were listed were mine. I was told that fosters don't count, but in that conversation, when I was talking to them, those were hospitalized animals or fosters that were going to other homes. I only have 2 personal dogs that are my dogs. I have animals that kind of come and go because of my job in the field that I am in. So not all of those animals were my personal animals. There was one that did pass away, and that was my mom's dog. While I was watching him, he dug through the fence, and I looked for him for hours and hours and hours, and I couldn't find him, and he was hit by a car. And that was almost 3 years ago now. Since then, I've also dug, and I have like grates under, like around my fence. Again, my animals are not left out in the yard without supervision because I know Fart will escape. She's really bad. She's the one that's gotten out multiple times that I work really hard to keep her in. She's just one of those dogs, but she hasn't gotten out recently, and I made appropriate changes. I've tried the shock collar thing with her. She doesn't care. Once she hits like that, she gets buzzed, but she knows once she gets past that, it doesn't keep doing it, so she doesn't care. She's like a lab pointer thing, so she's just my special child.
It says in here, you are unwilling to let animal control visit the animals and see the condition they live in. Is that an accurate statement?
That is inaccurate. I told her we could schedule a different time that she could do that because I work 2 jobs. I'm a full-time vet tech, and then I help an older lady with her farm in the mornings. And I told her we could schedule a different time because that was not working for me.
Okay.
She was not very kind or cooperative
And who was-
either.
This is,
Officer Lincoln.
okay. Have you worked that out with her? Have you requested somebody else to be the person that comes out and checks?
I have not heard anything. I have offered to meet out with her. The last conversation that I had with her, I did not need. She said she didn't need to come out.
Are you free on Saturdays? Is that a day off for you?
Saturdays I work. I have Sundays and then multiple times throughout Mondays and Tuesdays that could typically work.
I don't think animal control works on Sunday, but the other day you're off, if not her, somebody else could come out there.
Somebody else is welcome to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Staff, can we just make that part of? Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Yep, absolutely.
That's all I had.
Any more questions?
I just wanted to note that I've had issues with Officer Lincoln with dishonesty in the past. I requested in our last conversation for everything from her to be in email because I don't want to have to deal with the hearsay if I do need to go to a further court system if I need to do that, and that is under the recommendation of a lawyer.
Christie, can you check with animal control and see if maybe somebody else could be assigned to help her in the future? There's a little conflict here between the applicant and the,
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. I've requested that as well, but it probably means more coming from you, so thank you.
okay.
Do you want to make that a condition of approval to allow animal control?
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Do you want to make that a condition of approval to allow animal control to
Yes.
be on site to inspect?
At some point,
Okay, so if you make a motion, you'll just need to add that
Okay.
as a number.
Any other questions for the applicant?
For somebody to come inspect, I just need to know because I have a very busy schedule. So I need to know, like,
Someone will make a motion, and it'll be spelled out in the motion, and
Okay.
you can always check with staff too, exactly what the wording and everything's gonna be on that, so.
perfect.
All right, is there anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Has to be done.
Are you asking me to make the motion? Is that what you
Well, public hearing is still open.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close public hearing is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Sorry, Michelle, I'm so sorry.
You're right yourself.
Okay.
I tried hitting him, that didn't work either.
Let me ask you guys, and Michelle, too, when I say guys, I'm including you. I know you're not a guy, but I'm including you when I say guys, because it's all guys here. How do you feel about the different, what was it, adopted animals and things where she gets them from where she works? I mean, to me, that's almost like an asset, somebody that's kind enough to animals to take home and care for them. But maybe you guys don't feel the same way I do, so I don't know.
Does that make it a commercial license instead of a non-commercial?
That's a good point.
I mean, it's not a business.
Yeah, it's not a business. I mean, I assume you don't get paid, right? Applicant shook her head no.
She's just fostering them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's something the city needs to address in the code.
Christie, what do you feel about that? Fostering animals?
That's an entirely different conversation.
Yes, it
We'll
is.
have to have a workshop about that.
I'm trying to decide what to do tonight.
Well, from the facts in front of you, that's what we are looking at.
Well,
Currently, it doesn't differentiate between permanent
Yeah.
and temporary.
Right. Anybody else have anything else you want to add to it? Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve the conditional use permit for a non-commercial kennel license for 2 dogs, and you don't have 2, but 2 potbelly pigs, in an RS6 zoning district at 816 7th Avenue South for Savannah Salone, with all conditions and conclusions of law as proposed in the staff report, and that within the next 30 days, the applicant will meet with animal control to discuss issues they may have. That work? Okay. Anybody else have anything?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that conditional use permit is passed, but Savannah, just real quickly, let me remind you that this CUP is going to become effective 15 calendar days from this hearing date, unless an appeal has been filed with Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. So no action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. So 15 days from today, check with Planning and Zoning staff just to make sure that no appeals have been filed. If one has been filed, then they'll let you know what to do from that point.
Cards are in the back.
Yeah.
And I will send you a letter this week that will have all that information in it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they're very good about the communication and keeping in touch with you, so. All right, thank you very much. We will move to item number 4, which is a conditional use permit for a duplex in an RS6 single-family residential zoning district for Kevin Duffin, who's representing Nicholas Good. Mr. Duffin, this must be you.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Duffin. I reside at 16789 North Wentworth Lane in Nampa. And tonight I'm requesting a conditional use permit for a empty lot here in Nampa to build a duplex on it. And just a little bit of information, this lot, within a quarter-mile radius, there's quite a few duplexes within that range, as well as on this same street in 2021, a conditional use permit was granted for a duplex just down the street from this one. So fairly straightforward. The lot is empty right now. There's no house on it right now currently. And just requesting a conditional use permit, so.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant right now? All right, we'll hear from staff, and then maybe there might be a couple later. This is Mr. Parker, way back.
All the way in the back. Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners. The action requested is for approval or denial of a conditional use permit for a duplex in RS6 zone. The lot is 0.18 acres. The surrounding land uses and zoning is all RS6 zoning with adjacent to single-family homes. Public utilities and services are already available. This is a site plan provided by the applicant showing the structure and the driveway on the lot. There's a street view picture. Regarding conditional use permits, it needs to be compatible with and not adversely affect the livability of the abutting properties. Similar to the previous two conditional use permits. The correspondence, this is typical correspondence from building department that they need to get building permits and comply with Title IV. The engineering comments, pretty straightforward, that the frontage improvements would need to be made along Fairview Street. We had one public comment from the neighbor, Darren and Kathleen Kuhn, that had the following questions. Question on where the driveway will be placed, and we looked at the proposed site plan already. What does the applicant plan to do with the existing small house located on one corner of the property? I believe the plan is to, if the structure is still there, that it'll be taken off, but we can clarify that with the applicant. A question about landscaping and play area for children. This will be the same requirement for other single-family homes that we don't really require those to be in place. Is there any opportunity for oversight to help assure that the housing is affordable when the project gets completed? We aren't requiring it to be affordable housing, and I don't think that's the plan, but we can clarify with the applicant what the intent is there. The lot is designated as medium density. The surrounding land uses are single-family homes. The majority of homes in the area are single-family, but there are some duplexes. The Nampa has determined that it's in public interest to provide a variety of housing opportunities. That's voiced in the comprehensive plan. The schools that the children will attend, Centennial Elementary is 1.6 miles, West Middle School is 1 mile, and Nampa High School is 1.3 miles. The potential conditions of approval are in the staff report, as well as any that you would wish to add. There's a potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Bodley?
Yeah, there was a plat that was sent in by the neighbors, had like an access easement. Is that something that this property can use, or?
Commissioners, I haven't seen a recorded document for that easement, but if it's there, then they certainly can use it. It appears that there is enough space for a driveway already on that lot, so they don't have to use it.
Okay.
Could you put the photo back up?
That's the driveway in question.
That might be the one that's already.
This is the existing driveway that's there. The plat that the neighbor had shown shows an easement on that for public access, but, so they could use it if that easement is still there. But there's certainly enough room within this grassy area to provide a driveway for the duplex.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll open it up for public hearing. Do we have a sheet? Okay, so nobody signed up for this particular action item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like the opportunity to speak to this action, for or against? Proposal, not action. Okay. Hearing none, if you want to step back up to the podium and can you flip back to those questions posed by the,
Ask a question real quick. Do you have any elevations of what you're planning to build there, or just the site plan?
As far as like single story or multiple
Just
story?
what it looks like.
It is, we really haven't gone through the plan phase yet, just because we don't know with this conditional use permit.
CUP first.
Yeah,
Got it.
yep, definitely.
And are you a party to that access easement? It's on the south.
Yeah, as far as I know, the survey that I was given when I purchased the property didn't show it in there, but I will have to verify with that. But it does have enough frontage to just do a driveway on the property that I own, so.
He has a copy of what was submitted by the neighbor, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all I got.
so it looks like the driveway, we figured that out, or know that, but yeah, go back to that second question. Small house located in one corner. of
It's a
the
shed.
property.
It's not a house. Yeah, it was never
Really
recorded as a
small,
house. Yeah, it's just a tiny little shed there.
One
so.
bedroom.
Yep, yeah.
Landscaping and play area for the children, and I think Mr. Bodley alluded to the fact that that's not something that is required, and opportunity for oversight for housing is affordable. You want to speak to that?
I make it as affordable as possible because I like tenants.
You want
So,
to rent it out, right?
yeah, exactly. So,
There's no requirement
Yeah.
to make it affordable housing
Yeah.
as to what, yeah, okay.
but
I think
yeah,
that's kind of
definitely
where that
fairness.
question is coming
Definitely,
from. So.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Okay, motion's been made, close public hearing and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, public hearing is closed, so.
I don't have any problems with this.
I think it's a good project. Good option for housing.
Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for a duplex in an RS6 zoning district at 0 North Fairview Street. For Kevin Duffin representing Nicholas Good with all conditions of staff and conclusions of law.
Second.
Motion's been made in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, motion carries. So real quickly, let me just, to the others, CUP comes effective 15 calendar days from today. Pending any appeals, you need to check with staff on day 16 to make sure that there hasn't been any appeals, and then you can move forward. All right, thanks. All right, next item on the agenda is for Mr. Critchfield. It is a pre-annexation and future zoning to RS 22 and development agreement for Victory Springs subdivision for Black Summit LLC. So do we have the applicant here or a representative from the applicant? Come on up. This is your time to shine.
Mr. Vice Chair and Commission members, my name is Bob Unger. I'm with Unger Enterprises. The address is 9662 West Arnold Road, Boise, Idaho 83714. And I do represent Black Summit LLC, who's the developer on this project. I can do a full-blown presentation, or I can just tell you that we reviewed the staff report and the conditions of approval, and we have no issues.
Hey, what is it that you are looking to do real quick? Just rezone and that's it? I mean, there's nothing,
Correct, we're looking to rezone the property, but it's a pre-annexation and rezone of the property to the RS 22. We're looking to put in 14 single-family homes of greater, equal to or greater than a half an acre each. We're proposing city water. We've worked with engineering staff to discuss that. And they seem to be supportive because it's very close. Got a couple of private lanes that are will be on a separate lot for future annexation. As the city annexes it, then it could become right-of-way for city streets. There is one issue that staff and I have been discussing. We may be a little bit short on open space, and in the event that we are and can't come up with the rest of it, we may have to drop one lot. So what we're looking at here is a pre-annexation agreement with the city, between the city and the developer for this particular zoning. And then when the time comes that the city limits are contiguous to this property, the city can go ahead and annex it. And that will be a part of the final plat, and it will also be, any buyers will be notified of that condition.
any questions to the applicant before we move to staff? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We will move to staff, have them do their presentation and get back to you. Critchfield.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Kirkman, Commissioners. Doug Critchfield, Nampa Planning and Zoning. I've been enjoying looking at the perplexed looks on your faces as to what's a pre-annexation. This is a brand-new product. We've never brought one to you before, and so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time explaining to you what this is all about, if you could. We didn't have bear a with me. workshop on this, did we? I'm sorry, what's that? I wasn't at the workshop.
I kept thinking, if I missed something.
So the county and the city have a joint exercise of power agreement for the area of city impact. And in that agreement, the county, when they have a proposal come forward, they will submit that proposal to the city, primarily to engineering and planning and zoning for review. And then we provide comments back to them. And past history, we've been providing those comments and generally just going along with what the county wanted to do. But in recent years, we've been providing comments that have been opposing these projects, particularly subdivisions in the county, because it creates a barrier to annexation for properties in that area. And so what we have decided, and then in the interim, the engineering division has been entering into agreements for providing services, water generally, to these subdivisions if they're needed. And so they've been entering into this agreement. This is formalizing a process by which if the applicant is willing to come in and provide a development that follows the comprehensive plan guidance of lot size and density, and they're able to be serviced by the engineering department, either one or all utilities, then this is a formal process that allows us to enter into an agreement with the applicant that when the city limits arrive at their property line, they will then automatically annex into the city. It's not a new product. There's other communities that do this type of a thing. We just haven't done it here in Nampa before. The end result of this pre-annexation is going to be an agreement that's signed between the city and the applicant, that they'll pre-annex and that the city will provide water. They'll be paying fees that are associated with that typical annexation, plus additional fees required by the engineering division. So then, once that process is complete and that agreement is in place, then that goes along with the property. And so when they subdivide the property, the owners of the buyers of those parcels, both through the deed that they sign at the title company, as well as can you turn down the microphone? This is echoing a little bit. There we go. The CCNRs will have statements in there that they're agreeing to annex into the city as part of buying those properties. So, yes.
So they pay fees at this point, at the pre-annexation? Are there any fees when they actually are annexed?
No, they pay for the fees and the cost of that annexation when that time comes. That's all paid up front, I believe, right, Rodney?
That could be a significant.
Commissioners, the challenge with that, we wrote it the policy such that they would basically pay a double fee for annexation, because we have to go through the process of advertising, putting the notice on the property, hearing comments, writing a staff report, everything at this stage of the process. But also when they go to annexation, it'll be separate property owners, homeowners, that would then be required to pay for that annexation. It just didn't make sense to do that. And so what we're doing is incorporating that fee for annexation, because again, we're gonna have to post on every single property. By state law, we have to post on every single property and notify everyone within 300 feet that this is going to go through annexation. And we have to put it in the paper again. So what we do is we put that fee onto the utility agreement so that we have an annexation fee and a cost per lot of $20 to cover the cost of posting on every single lot.
And that's paid now?
That's paid now. It's through the utility agreement.
And when they annex, or
No,
only now?
so they paid the fee already for the pre-annexation, which we're addressing right now. And then once this pre-annexation gets approved, they enter into a utility agreement with engineering, and they pay another annexation fee plus $20.
So this is essentially an annexation hearing?
Essentially it is, yeah.
But using it kind of like a placeholder.
That's correct, because it doesn't meet the criteria for contiguous, so we can't do that. But if we don't plan for it now, it'll be inconsistent with our comprehensive plan, and it will prevent us from annexing that into the future. So they could just come in and get utility agreement and maybe, down the road when they become contiguous, we have to go to them and say, hey, will you apply for annexation? That doesn't work. So we had to go through this new process to pre-annex.
And it also seems like it would prevent, because this could be 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road, or it could be 5 years down the road, whatever. But it also seems like it would prevent another municipality from moving in and saying, we want this piece annexed into our city, be it Caldwell or Cuna or Meridian or whatever.
Yeah.
But we've already got dibs on it, so.
Well, and we're providing utilities, so.
Yeah. So,
Well, it's in our
Yeah.
area of impact.
And in our city of impact, yeah.
yeah, but there'll be no question then.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Rodney, I'm not sure if it's Rodney or Doug will answer the question, but it says in here that the property does not have, it says use city water, but individual septic systems. So when it goes into the city, do they have to hook up to city sewer?
No, we currently have that right now with a lot of projects. If they're large enough to get septic approval from the Southwest District Health, they don't have to connect to sewer for the city unless Southwest District Health says you need to connect. So currently, if somebody came in and had that situation, they would not be required until their septic failed. And then at time of septic failing, if there's sewer nearby that the city provides, then they have to connect to that sewer.
But if there was, say, 20 parcels, and everybody got their own septic system, and then the city comes in, and one fails, he has to hook up, and the other 19 could stay septic
That's correct.
until they all individually fail, or they all get together and decide, hey, it'd be cheaper just to
Yeah.
whatever.
Again, Southwest District Health is the official party that tells them whether they have to or not. So I would defer to their
But I just want to get an idea,
comments,
so
but yeah.
you answered the question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What about other city services like library? I mean, if they're in a pre-annexation state, can they get a library card?
So they're not paying property taxes to the city of Nampa yet. So once they become contiguous, then they pay property taxes. However, they pay extra utility fees to cover the cost of not providing property taxes for the utilities. So they have increased fees for utilities, but they don't get the other benefits of, well, the other benefit.
They don't get a library
of the
card?
library
Not
card.
necessarily true, because if you are outside of city limits, you can, and you're in area of impact, you could buy.
You could buy it, yes.
They're just in the county still.
Yeah, so you could buy a library card for the city of Nampa.
Yes, you
So if
could.
you don't have one given to you for free like we have, you could get one by paying them a fee for it.
You wouldn't be paying for your library card through property taxes.
Yeah, right, you're paying a fee.
All right.
But
Any
you
other
can get a library
questions
card.
any other questions for staff? Interesting concept, though.
So the end result after this agreement is signed, the city then will issue a letter of support for the project. In order to receive that letter of support, after this is signed, the commission's job and the council's job is to find, there are 4 findings that are associated that you need to find this evening. One is the project within the limitations imposed by the comprehensive plan future land use map. So does it meet the density requirements and the land use requirements? 2, the project proposes to meet city standards and code requirements. So we evaluate this as if it were a regular subdivision coming into the city of Nampa with those same standards. 3, the Nampa Board of Appraisers formally recommended utility connections. And 4, the project is not adjacent to Nampa city limits. If this project were in the county but adjacent to city limits and they wanted to go through a pre-annexation, we wouldn't support it. We would ask that they annex into the city, if that makes sense, yeah. So if any of these don't, if it doesn't meet these findings, then the city will send a letter of opposition to this proposal, so. In the agreement that we have with the county, the communication that they get from the city, they have to give it strong consideration of what they call great weight in the agreement. And they have been fairly consistently following that pattern. I've already covered this, let me see. So the application process, like you say, it's like a typical planning process. I mean, I'll just walk this through with you here. So we receive the notice from the county. It goes to the planning commission for review and compliance with the findings that I just mentioned. And then you're going to give a recommendation to the Nampa City Council to either approve or deny this request, this pre-annexation request. The council then will take the Board of Appraisers' recommendation, your recommendation, and the recommendations from staff, and then they'll make the final decision. And then if it's approved, then we enter into that agreement, we go through that process, and then they get a positive feedback from the city. Okay, so based on these findings, I'll walk through each one of these findings with you. So the first finding is that within limitations imposed by the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. So it is residential. It does meet this proposal that was presented meets the density requirements. They're proposing 1.38 dwelling units per acre. The minimum allowed by the comprehensive plan is 1.01, so they're within that range. The lot size range allowed by the comp plan, 96 to 32,000 square feet. They're proposing lots between 21,860 and 24,451, so they're in that range. So as far as staff can find, they meet that criteria. The second criteria, meeting city standards. The future zoning, we're not going to apply a zoning to this. It can't be dual zoned. It can't be zoned in the city and zoned in the county. But we'll make a recommendation that the future zoning for this should be RS 22. And based on that analysis, they meet the lot size range and the density of that zoning district. We're requiring a 25-foot landscape buffer. They're providing that. That's the green solid lines on the map, the plat map up there. They're also providing 50 feet right-of-way dedication on the map. And where they're short, as the applicant mentioned, is on the open space. They're about 17,828 square feet short on their open space requirement. So the applicant has indicated to us that they'll provide a new plat map with whatever changes they want to make, and we'll bring that forward to the city council. So what we're recommending to you tonight is that you place a condition that they meet the open space requirements. On the third finding, the Board of Appraisers met on July 6th, and this was recommended to go forward. And then, and you can see here, Caleb can speak a little bit more to the utilities. You have questions about that, but there are utilities really close to this site, the water connection close to this site. And that it's not adjacent to Nampa city limits. It's about 1.6 miles from Nampa city limits. We did receive correspondence on this project. There are easements that the applicant has acknowledged on their plat. The engineering division talked about street names. Code compliance just mentioned that there are weeds on the property. That's standard language, although the county has jurisdiction, the city does not. And then building department, if they were to get, if this property sat and then eventually it annexed in, they would have to get building permits through the city. Caleb, the engineering division, there's several comments. I'll just refer back to the staff report if you have questions on any of his comments, and he can answer those. And same with the fire department. And the police department just indicated that there would be some additional police services required, again, if this was in the city. We did have one resident send a letter that was given to you, Mr. Little, indicating concerns about the smaller lots and the incompatibility with the lots that are there now. There are larger lots that do surround this parcel. I believe those are acre to 2 acre lots. Some are larger. Conditions of approval were stated in your staff report. And I would add that in looking at these conditions, again, this is a new process for us. I would suggest to the commission that we add that requirement that they meet the open space requirements as an additional condition. So this is the motion before you. If you choose to deny the application, you would need to cite one of those 4 findings and what they don't meet in those findings, and then we'll make that recommendation to the city council.
Doug, I have a question for you, please.
Yeah.
You mentioned fire department, police department, and I maybe wasn't listening closely enough. If this is approved by us and they need a fire department, Nampa City Fire Department will respond.
It would be the fire district, and.
Okay, yeah, you're right, so change
yeah.
that. But, so the Nampa Police Department would respond?
No, it would likely be the county
Okay.
sheriff, yeah.
Until it gets contiguous and then gets, okay.
Yeah.
Want to make sure nobody goes, oops, it's outside, being stopped, and they don't go respond to somebody in emergency, but, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Doug, on the conditions that we have already in place, if this were to be approved, if for some reason those were to change before they were annexed in, would they be grandfathered into what might be approved tonight? Or would they be subject to whatever the changes might be down the road? Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
You mean like the engineering standards and things like that?
Yeah, any of the standards, are code standards or any of that kind of stuff. Would this particular, these types of projects be grandfathered in and not subject to whatever the new changes might be, or would they be, or do we even know that at this point?
I might ask Caleb to respond, and that would be part of that annexation agreement.
Caleb Leclerc, Assistant City Engineer for Nampa. So the project as it stands today will be subject to today's standards. So they're going to be developing the property, right? They're going to be building roads, they're going to be putting landscape buffers in, they're going to be putting sidewalks, those sorts of things. It's all going to be under today's code. When they annex in, the only question is, what's the zoning? And that's what we're trying to make sure is compatible today, that we have some kind of an answer for that when we do the forced, I say forced, but the required annexation by agreement. So did that answer your question?
I guess
Well,
more
what if they-
specifically, the question would be to like the 15% required open space. That changed recently. So what if that were to change in the future to 20%?
No,
Or
I-
back to 10% or 5%?
My opinion would that it'd be under today's code. Yeah, because it was analyzed under today's code. That'd be my
So,
opinion.
so if they don't develop this for 10 years and we have new engineering standards, they're going to be doing it under today's engineering standards.
Right on the limb, Caleb.
No, I would say that, they're submitting for a subdivision application right now with the county. Or what, they're doing a rezone application with the county with the intent to go to a subdivision application. The intent is that those happen within a timely manner with each other. Say they rezone it and decide not to subdivide for 10 years, well, we're gonna get noticed of when they do come in for preliminary plat application with the county. So at that time, they will be subject to our new standards at that time, yeah. The intent is that their preliminary plat, just as it is now, it's your timing of your preliminary plat that locks you into code. Does that make?
So the
correct? Yeah.
preliminary plat will come before us as well, or just before staff?
It's going to be before county, and then staff's recommendation to county will be based on what decisions are made through this pre-annexation agreement.
So city staff gets to look at the preliminary plat before the county approves it.
Correct.
Because it's in our impact area, that agreement allows us to make comments.
And just to make sure I understand the mechanics of this, when it does become contiguous, they become annexed automatically with no hearings, and they become zoned RS22?
No, that's not correct. They do have to go through the process, but they've already paid for that. And so we're not gonna put that on the backs of the new homeowners. We are just going to, from a staff level, go out, post the property, go through the annexation process, and we'll state they already went through this pre-annexation process, they were already given approval, it was already developed, we're going through the process for approval, for annexation. Because by state law, they can't annex until they're contiguous. And by state law, we have to meet those criteria once it becomes contiguous. And all of those things have to be met through a public hearing. So it's kind of a check the box as we get to that point.
That'll be something that will definitely have to be told to the potential future homeowners.
That's correct. And that's what Doug was saying, in the deed, in the title, that will need to be stated.
And those will all be conditions that will be in the annexation agreement, is we'll have those conditions in there. The benefit of having this agreement with conditions attached is it gives more authority, I should say, to require the county to adhere to what the city is requiring of the development. We make recommendations all the time to the county, and they can decide to go with them or not. If there's something in writing that's been recorded against the property, then they're legally bound to adhere to those requirements, so.
Would it be
there's a benefit.
possible, because I've sat through many closings with home buyers and they don't remember a thing. It could be in the CC&Rs and everything else. Is there a possibility, because this is new, we could have a completely separate page as well as what's in the CC&Rs as a disclosure, exhibit A, B, whatever, spelling it out again, so they have to, the buyers actually have to sign that separate piece of paper, because they say they've read the CCNRs and they haven't. But that way, when it, because it's going to, it's more than likely going to change hands a number of times before we get out to there. Is there a possibility we could have some sort of a special exhibit that each potential buyer down the road has to sign saying, if I'm still living here when the city gets out here, I agree to be automatically annexed?
I don't know how we manage that. I know we've talked about that the first buyer of the property has to sign an acknowledgement.
The developer could do it with,
Right.
in the CCNRs
Could-
and have it as an exhibit.
Sure.
A separate page that they have to, would that be
Yeah.
something you
That's
could look at?
good question.
Because I know, I don't know if you could include it, because there's different things and all sorts of CCNRs and stuff, but just so that they
Hold on just a second. We'll get to, hold on, we'll get to public hearing in just a second, okay? We're not
Okay.
quite there yet.
talk to title and ask them what they think of the idea, and just, because like I say, they'll never remember anything about it, and so if they at least have signed a separate document that says, I understand that when the time comes, we're gonna be annexed. At least, after they lived in the house for 7 years and they call their attorney and the attorney looks up the documents and says, hey, not gonna do any good because you signed this. It's just a thought, maybe one more time in front of them.
So let me just finish up with staff, and we want to make sure that Doug, your presentation is complete. I think we got to the end of it. I just want to make sure we're not cutting you off before we move to public hearing.
We're good.
Okay. So if there's no further questions of staff, we'll move to public hearing. So I do have a couple of people signed up. We'll start with those who are for the proposal, which Bob Unger, Mr. Unger, you've signed up. That I don't have anyone else for the proposal. I do have Jim Little, who is signed up to speak, wishes to speak, who is against the proposal. Mr. Little, I ask you to come up and state your name and address and whatever you would like to say within 3 minutes.
Jim Little, I reside at 12 North Seabiscuit Avenue. I also didn't know what a pre-annexation was, so I kind of treated it as if they were trying to get approval for this preliminary plat, which I'm opposed to. I live in the, I don't know if you can pull up the plat map there, but we back up to this new development, and we all, in Belmont Heights, have 1 acre or plus lots, and they're proposing to bring in, originally at the neighborhood meeting, it was proposed for 9 lots. Now they've bumped it up to 14 smaller lots. And with that backing up to the 1 acre lots, now, for example, in my backyard, I'll have 2 half-acre lots or smaller, which most of the homes in Belmont Heights are single level because of the large acreage. On the smaller acreage, you have more potential for 2-story homes. And then also that whole lot sits higher than Belmont Heights. And so even with single-story homes, they're going to be above. And then with, if you get 2-story homes, you're going to be quite higher than the existing Belmont Heights. So I'm against the 14 lots. I would like to see it drop back down to 1 acre lots. All the surrounding developments going in that area are 1+ acre lots. And so that's the only subdivision that's proposing to be cut into small lots. And so in order to protect the value of all those around, I'm opposing it. And now after hearing what the pre-annexation actually is, because I was looking on your website trying to see exactly what that was and couldn't find anything. I'm opposed to the pre-annexation as well. I think it's a bag of worms. I think you're exactly like you said. We sit in a title company as a buyer and sign all those forms, just going wow. And then if all of a sudden I'm being told, oh, by the way, now you're moving into the city here next year and you signed it 5 years ago, well, I'm getting a lawyer going, wait a minute. So I think by this pre-annexation, I think you're trying to look into the future. I think you're trying to, I ask myself, what are they, is the developer trying to find a loophole here and have a gray area so that in the future, he doesn't have to comply with the new laws or the new engineering standards or whatnot. So I have some concerns there. Why are we trying to do this so in advance? Because it could be 10 to 15 years before these city limits get out there. So I would be opposed to the pre-annexation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for your time.
We have an individual, let's see, Noreen McCombs, who has wishes not to speak, but is undecided regarding the proposal. Is that, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. McCombs, is that you? That's me. All right, you can come up and speak.
I didn't know what this
That's okay. You can come up and speak. Just pull that mic down if you'd give us your name and your address so we can get it on the record, and then you got 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My name's Noreen McCombs. My husband is home very ill with COVID, or there'd be 2 of us. We have lived at 7716 East Victory Road for the last 54 years. So this is home. We've been there a long time. There was 10 acres around behind us, and my husband is 85, I'm 83. We're unable to take care of 10 acres anymore. So we sold the back end of the lot off to this developer. We were told that they'd put 9 homes in there. We were told by the health department that they would need an acre of ground per septic tank. If they allow 14 houses, there isn't 14 acres there for the septic tanks, which means we're gonna be drinking somebody else's sewer. And that's my concern, and my main since I have been listening to what they're saying about annexation, we had no idea that we were about to be annexed into the city and after 54 years, we'll go from country living to city requirements. That's my concern. That's why I said I didn't know what I needed to say. But our concern is that we're about to be squished out or having to drink somebody's sewer if there's not enough. There was a septic tank on the property that was purchased. We just paid $12,000 to move the septic tank off of the property that we sold and ran it through our property so that there is no septic tank on that property now, and there was. So, but we've taken care of that portion of it. But this annexation thing is very frightening to me, that we're gonna go from country living to being squished. Any questions?
I just think a clarification, just for your peace of mind. If this project moves forward, your property's not gonna be annexed until you're contiguous to, and yours won't even be annexed.
Is that correct?
Yes, it's just when this property that we're talking about has a path of annexation contiguous to another city parcel, which may be quite a while based on its
The
1
little
point.
gray in the middle of the red?
That property's not in question in this.
Yeah, no, it's,
particular-
it's,
It won't be annexed?
no,
Thank you.
no.
That was my.
And even when, so this is pre-annexation, as far as I understand it, I'm learning on the fly here, but when the property in question gets annexed, that doesn't mean your property is gonna get annexed either. You would have to agree to annex the property. The city just can't come do a blanket
We would
annexation.
have to agree to that.
Correct, yes.
Thank you. I
You
appreciate
would
it.
actually have to apply for it, not agree to it.
We'd have to apply.
Yeah, so you'd have to make the decision, I'm ready to annex, go to the city, and then
And what would be the reason we might do that?
if you want city services, sewer.
Your well failed.
Yeah.
It just did, we just replaced it,
Yeah, so you're good.
so we're good. Okay.
You got at least 30, 40 years, so.
Yeah, the city limits, so the
I'm
city limits,
83, where am I going?
yeah, the city limits is 1.6 miles away from this property, so.
And the county line is
It's a McDermott.
McDermott County line is right there.
Yeah, you're almost in Ada County.
We are almost in Ada County. So,
I think you got plenty of time before city limits gets out there, and even when it does, just the area in red is what's in question. Your property is,
we would be exempt from that. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time.
all right, are there any, that's all I have on this sign-up sheet. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against, or maybe they aren't quite sure? This is your opportunity. All right. Mr. Applicant, would you like to come back up, Mr. Unger, and maybe address some of the concerns? And I think we've kind of resolved some of hers, but nonetheless.
Mr. Vice Chair and Commission members, Bob Unger. Okay, let's, real quick here, let me address Mr. Little's concerns there in Belmont Heights. Between Belmont Heights and this property is the Reidenbach Canal, and there's a 100-foot easement that is clear area. So we're not
Both
that,
sides.
we're not that close to his property.
Is
There's
it
at least
100,
100 feet.
is the easement on both sides, 100 feet on both
No, it's
sides?
50 feet
50 feet on
from
both
center,
sides.
so it's 100 feet total. So we're not going to be sitting on top of him. And yes, our lots are smaller than their lots, but they are within the comprehensive plan for the city. And originally, we were going with 9 lots. And the possibility of bringing water to the site made it more advantageous for us. So we added some additional lots, knowing that we could go to a little bit smaller lots in order, and that way we could afford to bring the water into the project itself. Once again, we're still in compliance with the comprehensive plan and city code.
Does the current 9 lots, does that include the 1 or 2 lots that might need to be reduced due to open space requirements? I don't know if we're going to go that way.
We're 14 now.
Oh, it's 14, I'm sorry, 14.
And it looks like we're gonna go down,
So the
looks like we're
14
gonna go to 13. 'Cause I
Okay,
can't-
that's what I want.
I can't find the extra 17,000 square feet.
I'm glad someone
So-
understood my question.
So we're gonna end up down to 13 is what's gonna happen
Okay.
there.
What about the question with the septic?
Yeah.
Okay. Southwest District Health allows septic on a half acre if you have water, city water, which is what we're providing. We have conducted groundwater monitoring and soil testing, and the soils do support septic systems on these lots. Okay? And of course, we'll have to submit all of that to Southwest District Health for their, for the individual lot approvals. Okay? As far as the future annexation and the way we handle this, and I think, Mr. Turner, you probably would understand it, is that a deed restriction will be placed on each and every lot. So it's not just something that'll go through title and people won't be aware of it. It's something that they have to be made aware that that restriction is on their lot. And they will have a copy of that and everything. It'll also be a part of the CCNRs, and it's also will be a note on the final plat that gets recorded. So there's 3 different documents, actually 4 because of the agreement with the city. There'll be 4 different documents that will spell that out very distinctly, okay? And we are meeting with county staff Thursday to move forward with not only our rezone, but also our preliminary plat. And it is my client's intention to move forward with with those 2 applications as soon as possible, as soon as the county can get it through their process and move forward with this project. We anticipate having this project completed within 2 years. And I think that's everything. So I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
So I don't think this is a requirement, but, well, I know it's not a requirement in this situation, but was there any discussion with surrounding neighbors?
Yeah, we had a neighborhood meeting.
remember hearing that.
We did have a neighborhood meeting, and at that time is when we were looking at the 9 1-acre lots.
That's when they were told that it was gonna be, at that point, that's when you said these are gonna be 9.
Correct.
When you decided to go to 14, was there another meeting to let them know that you were going to 14?
No, we did not have a second meeting.
All right, any other questions for the applicant?
Just curious, how did you get here to pre-annexation? Was that a recommendation of city staff or?
Yes, we met with city staff. We did a pre-application meeting with city staff because we know that that with the area of city impact agreement with the county, the city has to review these applications prior to the county moving forward. So we wanted to step up and do this as soon as possible. So that at that time, that's when the city staff said, well, we have this new process, pre-annexation agreement, and we would recommend that you go through that process.
You were the guinea pig.
I believe we are. And my clients they fully support this, 100%.
Commissioners, just for clarification too, as part of our process for approval of utilities, we now require the pre-annexation.
Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
And it's not like a grab for annexed ground, it's to protect the city's interest of the county going out and doing things that don't match.
I think you said that really well. There's no motivation for us to annex these properties right now. Like, there's no intention for us to go out and gobble these properties up. It's to protect us in the future.
I think you said your fee for posting was $20 a property and you start the car and spend $20.
Yeah.
Go take the signs out there.
Exactly.
I think it's a good idea, this preemption thing or pre-annexation.
We,
We good? Close public hearing?
before we go into discussion, we do still have open public hearing, so.
You have any more panels?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right, motion and seconded to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public hearing's closed. Proceed with your
I'm gonna
comments.
talk before Steve, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I made them. I mean, I think it's a good vehicle. I think it's a good way to secure the future. I can understand why some people may not like it, but it's, as the director said, that it's not something we're gonna go out and willy-nilly just go around trying to gobble up property.
It's in the area of impact already.
Yeah,
and
it's gonna be, it's just a matter of time. We're getting ahead of the curve,
Hopefully.
that's all.
Prevent, like, places where I live that are in the county, all surrounded by city property, and none of my neighbors want to annex, but I would love sewer service. and
So
a well.
who's going to be responsible for the water to the property? Developer?
Developer.
Oh, I should know this, but is RS-22 the least dense zone we have?
Vice Chair and Commissioner, the RS-22 is the least dense of the single-family residential zoning that we have.
So there's no way for us to make, under our code, to say, well, no, you have to do 1 acre lots.
The only provision we have for 1 acre lots would be if the comprehensive plan allowed that. And the comprehensive plan in this area is all low-density residential.
But theoretically, the county could say, we'd like you to do bigger lots, right?
So once we provide comments to the county, then the county then has jurisdiction as to how they'd like to proceed. Yeah.
With the strong consideration from
Yes.
the recommendations from this commission, the council, and staff are strongly considered.
And the biggest teeth here is the utility, right?
Yeah.
So in order to get the utility agreement, they have to have an approval of the pre-annexation.
I guess I'm saying if we did have the concern of compatibility, that it's not compatible with the larger lots next door, there's nothing really we can do city-wise about that. It would have to be the county have that same concern and have them do bigger lots. Is that my understanding correct?
They could go through a comprehensive plan map amendment, but that's a significant process, and we try to stay pretty consistent with our comprehensive plan, so.
So we're not gonna make them do that. They would have to want to do that.
We do have to transition somewhere, and so, Mr. Little, I understand your concerns, but and I kind of like this pre-annexation thing where we're getting a little bit of input for what's going on in the county, because we're running into this in other areas where the county approved something years ago, and now the city's surrounding it, and it's really tough to transition. So I understand you wanting everybody to be 1 acre lots, but we do have to start to go from 1 acre to half acre to standard size lots somewhere down the road. So this gives us a little bit of an opportunity to kind of start looking into the future and going, okay, you guys got 1 acre lots. We can step down over here and go to half acre lots. And then maybe the subdivision on the other side of Victory, maybe when it gets there, could be standard size or 1/4 acre lots. So we can transition, but because, like I say, we ran into this in a number of spots where now the city's there, and it's just too tough to try to figure out what will now work with what's been there for years. So I understand you wanting everybody to be 1 acre lots, but I think that canal gives you a pretty good buffer, and it's going to go down to 13 lots. But I that gives us something to work for in the future, to when we get there, we can be compatible and make it work. So
I think generally that principle is right, but this is kind of an enclaved kind of property, isn't it? You know, I guess.
you do have the canal. You got 100 foot with the canal there.
I mean, it's got larger lots all the way around it already, so, you know what I mean?
It doesn't have anything on the other side.
Does it have anything on the south side?
They're large properties.
Our comp plan is medium density residential across the street to the south.
Yeah, so medium density, you'd be down to 1/4 acre lot. But there's nothing really on the other side.
But, and I guess, from what I'm understanding, we can't make them go any bigger than a half acre anyway. So the county is gonna have to do that if they want.
Vice Chair Kirkman and Commissioner Morgan, the maximum lot size allowed is 32,000 square feet.
So that's max in our comp plan, so this fits right into the comp plan that's in place.
So we can say, we're okay with you guys doing this, planning on RS-22. We think that you guys were okay with it under those conditions, and then I guess if the county feels they want to make it less dense, they can, but we can't.
And I would just say that, again, just going back to utilities, we have an agreement with them to service these properties, right? And so if the county changes their density, it changes what the agreement we have with them to service these properties. So they would have to come back. If the county says no, they'd have to come back with a new proposal that still meets the comp plan in order to get utilities.
Okay, so if they go bigger than half acre, they're not getting city utilities.
Well, I think the 3,200, or 32,000, yeah.
Because the next step is very low density, right?
That's correct.
So confusing.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one clarifying thing. Can you go back to the motion? It says we should approve. Is that the right language? Like, we're not approving something, right?
Recommendation.
My apologies. It should say recommend approval of pre-annexation to the city council. Yeah.
Like, you know what the motion is?
All right. With that, I will move to recommend approval of the pre-annexation of future zoning to RS-22 and development agreement for Victory Springs subdivision at 7722 East Victory Road with all conditions listed in the staff report.
There was something, I think, Mr. Critchfield, did you want to add?
Oh.
Make sure we get a condition.
With the
or
condition
suggest-
that the plat meets the open space requirement.
Oh, yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Still second, all right, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes with the conditions. Thank you. Last item on the agenda is another conditional use permit for multiple family residential for Zandra King, who is representing Susan and Edward Wanacott.
Visuals.
Yeah. She made them big because she knows how bad
You need
all our
a
eyesight is.
easel for those?
I don't know if this is required for CUP, so I'm just gonna set it up for you guys for viewing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I sent an electronic, sorry, Zandra King with BRS Architects, 1010 South Alante, Suite 100 in Boise. And I sent an electronic version of the site plan that we are currently working off. I don't know if we have that available. Yeah, that's it. So it's just a little bit different than what we sent in with our application, so we want to make sure you guys have that for discussion. The reason we're here tonight was to kind of fill in the missing step in the process on the development of this property. We did go through design review approval. We went through CUP and design review approval on the north parcel, and we went through design review approval on the south parcel, and I was unable to attend the pre-app, and so the builder and the client may or may not have missed that. We did need a CUP on the south parcel as well because of our intent to build 3-story apartment buildings instead of 2-story. And so it was discovered while we were trying to get feedback from the city on the site plan that we had missed that CUP step, and so we're here tonight trying to correct that. But I did want to make it open for any discussion on the site plan or development intent in line with the fact that we are doing the 3-story buildings on this parcel. So all of our development intent is listed there on the site plan as far as amenities that we've discussed previously and the fact that we feel it's going to service the community with what we're intending to build. So, but I would just open it up for discussion and questions regarding the CUP on the 3-story buildings.
Any questions for the applicant?
I can't quite make all that out. Is it still basically 5 residential buildings and then 1 residential commercial on the bottom floor?
So the building on the north parcel, the north parcel is touching Caldwell Boulevard. And so my understanding is that we are doing the commercial on the ground floor to stay in that zone, and that we did a conditional use permit to actually do the residential on the upper 2 floors of that new building. So the ground floor is commercial.
The concept's basically the same as what we got in the application.
Yes, sir. So the 5 buildings on the south parcel that we're here for tonight are entirely residential. The one you can kind of see on the site plan, we are doing a few parking bays, parking garages on the ground floor so that we can meet our parking counts for the overall site. But there will be some recreational space on the ground floor as well. But other than that, it's all residential.
Any other questions?
Can you do like live work?
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. We should consider that. I don't know if you feel like that would be a better use than like a meeting gathering space,
I
but
mean, maybe not live work.
I mean,
but
for the north parcel?
just the commercial aspect of that.
so the commercial right now is intended to be a boutique hotel.
Oh,
There,
okay.
there are 5 units that are intended to be rented out as
I
hotels.
toured a property that had live work units and it was really cool. So, yeah, thought I'd
But
ask.
on the south parcel, that building that's intended to be the same, one second. This is the building that was intended and approved for the north parcel.
And it's going to be a very similar building on the south parcel where the parking garage is. Sorry?
It's okay.
I was thinking about that when I put it together, that I glued it upside down. So where I was saying there would be some recreational space on the ground floor, could be live-work area that could be leasable that way.
All right, well, thank you. You can just leave those right there if you want, and then we'll have staff do a presentation. We may have some questions for you afterwards. Thank you.
I think this is the only way it'll stand.
That is, yeah. Perfect.
We'll all lie
Bodily-
down up here, we'll be right on cue with it.
Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners. The action requested is for a conditional use permit for multifamily in a BC zone for the Boulevard project. The lot is 0.862 acres. Zone BC, the surrounding land uses, the Mexican restaurant to the north, there's an office building to the south, auto sales to the east, and then the mobile home park to the west, all zone BC. History, this body approved the conditional use permit for the first phase. That conditional use permit was up to 8 residential units. So the reason we're coming back with this CUP was for the additional residential units that they're proposing. Back in December also, the Design Review Committee approved the elevations for the first phase, and then in February of this year, the Design Review Committee approved the elevations for the second phase, this phase. The conclusions of law, I won't cover those as we've gone through those already tonight. The correspondence, again, typical building correspondence requiring building permits and Title IV compliance. Code compliance states that there's weeds on the property that need to be addressed. Fire department, development is 1.5 miles from fire station number 4, a response time of 7 minutes. The police department is recommending a commitment to fund 0.12 additional officers and 0.04 staff. They stated that there's a large number of calls for service due to high traffic related issues on Caldwell Boulevard. The engineering comments, the right-of-way has already been dedicated across the frontages. Full frontage improvements would be required on Comstock. Here's a site plan. The suggested site plan was sent to us today, so I haven't had a chance to look at parking calculations, but all that will be addressed with the time of the building permit when we fully review it, make sure that they meet the parking, the open space, all those requirements for multifamily. The elevations are shown there. Again, these were already approved by the Design Review Committee. The property is surrounded by a variety of uses, commercial uses, and the mobile home park to the west. Again, this is the second phase. The first phase was for 8 units and a commercial space. The future land use designation is commercial. The proposed gross density is 32.56 dwelling units per acre. The NAMPA's determined that it's in the public interest to provide a variety of housing types as expressed in the comp plan. The students from this development would attend Nampa High School, 2.8 miles, Lone Star Middle School, which is 3.1 miles, and then Willow Creek Elementary, which is 1.4, none of which are within walking distance. The required amount of open space for this would be 5%. The applicant indicates 14% on the application, but again, we'll verify that at time of building permit. I've included our parking calculation, which was updated in May of this year. depending on the number of bedrooms in each unit, and then a number required for guest parking. Again, the site plan was just submitted today, so we'll have to work through some of the layout, and engineering will have some comments, and fire department will make some comments on that as well. Should you vote to approve the conditional use permit, then the conditions of approval are in the staff report, as well as any that you would wish to add. And there is a potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions? I just had to smile when the Nampa Police Department always asks for that fraction of an officer. Maybe after 3 or 4 of these, they'll finally get that full officer's position. Okay, well, let's open it up to public hearing. I don't know, nobody signed up, okay? Well, we have a couple of people on this. I just want to make sure you have an opportunity if you wish to speak for or against this proposal. Now's your chance. If not, window's closing quick. All right. You want to come back up to the podium just to see if we have any questions or anything you want to add?
Do you got any questions?
No questions to applicant? All right, well, thank you for coming back up to the podium. All right,
Motion to close public hearing.
it's been motion second to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
We've had these kind of applications in this area before, and I've voted for them in the past, and I'll vote for this one because I think it's a good mix between the different types of businesses and homes. There's no real homes, but the apartments and condos that we've put in here. I think it's a good way to go, and it's a good area for it. I'm done.
Agree.
It's a better place than right in the middle of a,
Sorry?
it's a better place than right in the middle of single family.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's gonna be kind of a cool project. when it-
Yeah, I think so too.
Looks nice.
All right then.
I guess I'll make the motion to approve the conditional use permit for multiple family residential in a BC zoning district for the Boulevard project at 614 Comstock Avenue for Zandra King, representing Susan and Edward Wanacott with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Damn, almost made it. Hey, I just want to make sure, you probably heard this the other 2 times, the 15 days from the day of this hearing, check with staff, make sure there's been no appeals, and at that point, then you can move forward. We just want to make sure it's all clear to go. Okay? All right, we are adjourned.